Story 1. I found out my newborn baby isn't mine but actually my brother's after 3 years of marriage. Then my parents begged me to stay silent because my father-in-law was investing in their business. I, 28M, have been married for the past 3 years, and my wife, Jade, 26F, and I have been together for almost 6 years now. A couple of months ago, we had our firstborn, but I recently found out that it's actually my brother's biological baby. My brother, Grant, 32M, had been having an affair with Jade for the past 3 years. Started a few weeks after we got married, and I had no idea until a few weeks ago. I'll be honest, I had been having a lot of problems connecting with the baby emotionally for some reason, and I had been feeling like a terrible father because I just didn't feel very attached to my own baby. I still don't know why that was happening. Maybe it was a gut feeling. But anyway, I was talking to Jade about this one night and I ended up crying because I was feeling so guilty about it, and that's when she started sobbing hysterically as well instead of comforting me. Then the whole truth came out. She tried to tell me that it was not my fault that I didn't feel connected to the baby because it was definitely not mine. She already had the paternity test, but she chose not to tell me about it because the affair had ended right after she found out that she was pregnant, and she and Grant had nothing to do with each other anymore. She wanted to focus on me and work on our marriage. But after she told me the truth, it was too late. I immediately started packing, and even though it was really late at night, I left. Since then, I've been staying at a hotel. She tried to stop me. She was really upset, but I just left. Then I even blocked her so she wouldn't be able to reach out to me. Since then, it's taken a lot out of me emotionally, and for the first few days I couldn't even process what was happening to me. I didn't even tell my parents about it, but they found out thanks to Jade and Grant. Instead of comforting me, they called me up, told me that they knew everything, and then immediately started telling me that now whatever had happened was in the past. Jade had messed up, but being her husband, I just had to forgive her and forget about everything so we could focus on our family and fixing our marriage. I had no idea what family they were talking about because as far as I was concerned, that baby was not mine, and it was ridiculous for them to even suggest that I raised the baby like a father and continue to stay with Jade in spite of everything that she had told me. I thought that they were being crazy, but a little while later, my dad finally told me the truth. Apparently, this was just a business deal for my parents because my father-in-law was planning on investing in my dad's failing logistics business to revive it. My father-in-law has a few established businesses that he dabbles in and is pretty well off. I know that my parents had always been very impressed by the kind of family that I had married into, but I never thought that this would become such a big deal for them. Apparently, this investment had been in the works for quite a while, and they were planning on surprising us with it in a few weeks when everything was finalized. But now, if I decided to get divorced from Jade, it would have taken a toll on their personal relationships, and then it would be questionable whether my father-in-law would still invest in the business or not. According to my parents, my dad seriously needed this right now if he wanted to go on. So that's why I had to just suck it up and not make a big deal out of this. They wanted me to pretend like everything was fine and raise my brother's kid like my own and forgive my cheating wife as well, just so they could have the investment that they wanted. I was so disgusted that I hung up and blocked them, and then just for good measure, I started looking for a lawyer immediately. As soon as I had found somebody good enough, I filed for a divorce, and about 3 days back, Jade was served. On the same day, I decided to reach out to my parents, my in-laws, every business associate of my dad's that I know of, a couple of employees in my dad's company, a few family friends and relatives, and tell them about the situation that I was in. It took me a couple of hours to find everybody's email addresses, but when I did, I told them all about how my wife had cheated on me with my brother and how, just for the investment, my parents had asked me to keep quiet and pretend like everything was fine. Then I sent it out. Now my parents are blowing up my phone with emails, texts, and phone calls from various numbers and accounts. They are very upset about what I have done because now, of course, they're not getting that investment anymore, and they've also lost their reputation. They want me to apologize as if that's going to do anything. They've also told me that Jade is also beside herself and has been diagnosed with postpartum depression. So this is only going to make it worse. She's completely miserable, and they're trying to make me feel guilty, but I really don't feel very bad about anything. I really feel like they deserved it. So, I am an asshole for telling everyone the truth about my wife and parents and humiliating them publicly. Edit. Okay, so there were a lot of questions about Grant, the kind of relationship he had with Jade and me and stuff, so I think I should just answer that. Grant and I had a pretty normal relationship like brothers do. So all of this is completely unexpected, and ever since I found out, we have not spoken to each other even once. He also had a pretty normal relationship with Jade. I never suspected anything was going on between them at all. Besides, Grant had always been more of a loner and was never interested in sticking with one woman for too long. His job required him to travel a lot, and even apart from that, he travels a lot. He's very spontaneous and very different from me. From what I knew, he was never Jade's type, not appearance and definitely not personality-wise, so of course it didn't make any sense to me. According to what Jade told me, they had only started hooking up after we got married and stopped after she found out that she was pregnant. She might be telling the truth or she might not, but even during that time I didn't notice anything out of the blue. They were just very good at hiding it. But whatever it was, I always thought that they were just friendly with each other but nothing more. As to why Jade cheated on me, I don't really know. When she was trying to get me to stay and trying to explain herself after telling me the truth, she said a bunch of stuff about me overworking myself at the beginning of our marriage. Back then, I had just started working because I didn't want to continue my dad's business. So I knew that I had to work hard if I wanted to get ahead. Sure, people could say that I was serious about my job, but I never overworked myself, nor was I the kind of person who brought the office home with me. I think she was just bored and she needed an excuse to hook up with somebody else. And that's what she did. Anything apart from that, she's just trying to justify herself because she doesn't want to admit that this was completely her fault. So that's pretty much all I know about Grant and the situation with Jade. That's it for now. Update 1. Thank you everybody for all the comments. All the support really means a lot to me, especially right now given the situation that I'm in. Pretty much everyone hates me, be it my parents or my in-laws, who think that I have humiliated them by speaking about what Jade did to so many people who didn't exactly need to know. It's been a few days and I've just spent every second either drowning myself at work in the office or coming back to the hotel and deleting messages and emails that my parents have been sending me from other accounts because they are completely relentless. They're just not going to stop. I keep blocking them and they keep coming up with new accounts and numbers. I don't even know why they're going to these extents because the damage has already been done. Me apologizing is not going to change the truth, neither is it going to make them any more respectable. Apart from that, a couple of days ago even my in-laws reached out to me and told me that that email was really not necessary. They could see who else I had sent it to and they could see that I sent it to a bunch of people that my parents knew just to humiliate them. But because I did that, it ended up humiliating Jade as well. I don't understand why I'm supposed to feel bad about that. That woman literally cheated on me with my brother and was happy to pretend that the baby was mine and let me raise my brother's kid as my own until she broke down that one night. What she had done was disgusting. She totally deserved this. Anyway, I didn't bother replying because I just want to move on from this. Currently, I'm only waiting for Jade's lawyer to respond to the divorce petition. In my opinion, I've been pretty fair, and I just hope that she doesn't make a fuss about anything. As for the baby, it's not mine, so I'm not going to be contributing at all. I might be the father listed on the birth certificate, but that doesn't make a difference to me. It's not that I hate the baby or anything. If anything, the baby is the only person who is innocent in the entire situation, and I actually feel bad because he will suffer for the way his parents screwed up. But even then, it's not my responsibility to take care of a baby that is not biologically mine, especially when it's my brother's. So if she brings anything up about the baby, I just know that I'm not going to take it at all. I'm just preparing myself for every possible scenario because right now I don't know what to expect. I haven't spoken to Jade ever since I left, and I really don't want to speak to her ever again either. I know that she is miserable right now. Enough people have told me about it, and even when I was leaving, I could tell that she was really upset. But I just hope that this misery does not make her believe that she can contest the divorce and somehow get me to stay because that's not going to be happening at any cost. I'll do whatever it takes, but I'm going to get out of this situation somehow. In the meantime, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that she doesn't drag this out and make it more difficult than it already has to be. Please keep me in your prayers and hope that she doesn't contest the divorce and make it worse for everyone involved. She still has a few days to respond, so I'm just hoping that she makes the right call. Update 2. Hey everyone, it's been a week since my last update, and today I finally heard back from Jade and her lawyer. She is not contesting the divorce, thankfully, but there is another problem at hand now. She has forwarded a child custody arrangement. She wants me to step up as the biological father and has even sent a note saying that I'm the guy listed on the birth certificate, even if I'm not the biological father. And for the last few months I have been involved in the baby's life, so I need to do this whether I like it or not. It was really infuriating because I don't think the name on the birth certificate means anything in comparison to the paternity test results. So I spoke to my lawyer immediately afterward, and we have decided to go ahead and disestablish paternity so I can be legally absolved of any responsibility that I have towards the baby. Until the legal process is complete, I'll still be presumed to be the legal father, but the baby is literally just 4 months old, so I don't think it's going to matter that much. I'm still hoping that the process is completed soon. My lawyer has reassured me that it's not going to be a difficult process because, given the age of the baby, it's very unlikely that my absence is going to affect him in any way, and with time, he's probably even going to forget that I was ever a part of his life. It would have been a problem if I had found out later on when he was at an older age, but for now, it's completely fine. I'm really glad that I found out when I did because in the future, I don't know how difficult it might have become for me to deal with this, even emotionally. I might have been able to form an attachment with the baby, and things would have become just really complicated. I'm also kind of glad that in the beginning I was not able to connect with the baby. I read about it in detail online, and apparently a lot of new parents do experience stuff like that, so I thought that maybe with time it would wear off, and I would be able to connect with the baby like other normal fathers. But I thank God that I wasn't able to do that, and it made me feel guilty, and I ended up confessing it to Jade because otherwise, I never would have found out the truth. That's the only silver lining in the situation for me right now. That plus the fact that in the past few days my parents have decided to get off my back, at least for right now. I don't know what they've planned for the future, but thankfully, they haven't been texting me or bothering me for the past couple of days, and it's just been radio silence. Now that I finally have some time to think about the future, I've been thinking about moving out of the hotel and getting an apartment near my workplace because at the moment, I don't want to do anything apart from just work and sleep. And of course, I can't stay in the hotel forever. It's going to get too expensive at some point. So I've asked a couple of my friends to put me in touch with a realtor, and I'll just see where that goes. I have also finally started responding to all the people who have replied to my email. There were quite a few people who were very sympathetic and compassionate towards me. I don't know if it was for real or not, but I figured that I should reply to them just to be polite because now that I think about it, it must have been very awkward for them to receive such an email as well. The least I could do was respond to them. Almost 90% of the people from my family to whom I had sent that email had responded to sympathize with me and told me that everything was going to work out fine. Most of the employees had just ignored the email, but some of the business associates of my father's did reply along the same lines. So I thanked all of them, and I even thanked a few people whom I hadn't contacted, but I guess they found out from other sources because I'm pretty sure that this must have spread like wildfire in the form of family gossip. But as long as people are reaching out to me to sympathize with me, I'm fine with whatever. At least they are not trying to find out more about it from me. It might seem a little needy, but right now I'm totally cool with accepting whatever kind words come my way, be it from friends or family, whether they are genuine or not, because even though I'm very upset, I still miss her. I miss being with her. I miss my parents and family, and I miss everything being normal. I think it's totally natural for me to feel that way even though they have betrayed me and my trust. It's not just a switch that I can turn on and off. It's going to take a long time for me to process all of this. But for now, I'm just in this weird place. I don't know how to deal with it. I just feel like I'm really alone right now. But I guess it's going to be fine eventually. I won't be able to come to terms with it fully ever because Jade was the first woman that I ever truly loved. But life is not going to stop for me. I'm still going to have to work, I'm still going to have to do everything that I did, and take care of the practical things, and that's just how it is. Sucks, but that's how it is. Update 3. Hey everyone, so since I had filed a petition to disestablish paternity about a week ago, both parents were summoned to family court, and of course, Jade lost her mind over it. She didn't know how else to reach me, so she decided to make a fake account on Facebook and started calling me on the Messenger app. This happened yesterday, and I was in a meeting at the time, so my phone was on silent, and I didn't notice it. Later on, when I checked, I noticed that she had called me about 12 times in a span of 45 minutes and had also sent me a bunch of messages when I didn't pick up. She was pretty angry and upset because apparently, she believes that Grant and I have ruined her life. Apparently, it was not she who had broken up with Grant after the pregnancy. It was he who had dumped her after finding out that she was pregnant because he didn't want anything to get so serious. That's when she had decided that she was going to stick to me because at least I was committed to her. But then she found out that Grant was the father and she tried to reach out to him again, but this time he actually told her to terminate the pregnancy because he was not ready to be a father yet, and neither was he about to commit to her. Then she kept trying to get in touch with him, but he just kept ignoring her, and then he literally blocked her. She told me all of this in the messages, and now she's accusing me of abandoning her as well, just like my brother did, and that's apparently how the two of us have ruined her life, sticking her with a baby by herself because Grant has made it more than clear that he has no interest in raising the baby with her, and even if she is somehow able to get him to pay child support, she will still not be able to get him to be a father, and it will be she and the baby who suffers. I don't know how any of this is my fault. I can still understand why she thinks that Grant ruined her life, even though she had an affair with him, knowing what kind of person he was, knowing that he didn't like to be tied down and stuff. But I don't understand how she's blaming me. The mental gymnastics is crazy here. After reading the messages, it became very clear to me that she just wanted to play the victim, and anyway, I was not interested in talking to her, so I just blocked her. If she knows what's good for her, she's not going to contest the paternity situation and let me disestablish paternity smoothly and save her time, money, and resources so she can get Grant to step up and pay child support. At least she's going after the wrong brother. That's all I have to say about this. Anyway, that whole situation is going to be sorted out in court anyway, so I don't want to worry about it right now. Apart from that, I also had my parents on my back, but recently I think they have decided to leave me alone because in my last update also I had mentioned that they had not bothered me for quite a few days, and since then they haven't texted me at all. This might be the quiet before the storm, or it might just be the fact that they have realized that they have lost their reputation, they have lost investment, and making me apologize is not going to get them anywhere. From what I know after speaking to a couple of relatives, they have been completely MIA. They have deactivated all their social media, they have stopped talking to people in the family, and even my dad's business has been defunct for quite some time now. They think that he's in the process of selling everything, which is why everything is all shut up. If that's the case, I know he's going to be very sad about it because he was very proud of what he had built, but oh well. My dad is almost in his late 50s, so I just hope that he has enough saved up to retire because I don't think he can go back to work for somebody else at this stage of his life. I'm not on good terms with him at the moment, but I know that he used to be a hard worker, and maybe he messed up recently, but before that, he had always tried to be a good father to me, so I really do hope that things work out for him. And I also hope that I don't have to speak to him for a while, because I don't think I'm ready for that yet. Anyway, even if they don't have me, at least they have Grant. He makes a good amount of money, and even though he's not at home a lot, I don't think that's going to make a difference. He doesn't have a family. I don't think he has any intention of starting one either. So if my parents don't have enough saved up too, that's fine. They can always rely on Grant and consider him their retirement fund. And I hope that Jade chooses to do the same thing and is able to extract some child support out of him. That'll be fun. Fun for me, not so much for him, but I think after everything that he has done to damage my relationship with my wife and the life that I had built for myself, this is the least that I can wish for him. Anyway, that's it for me for now. I'll post here again if anything else happens. Please continue to keep me in your prayers, and once again, thank you all so much for all the love and support. Update 4. Hey guys, so I haven't posted here for a while. I've been very busy. I think my last update must have been about 5 weeks ago, but in the meantime I have been able to disestablish paternity, and so I will not be paying any sort of child support or taking up any responsibility. It was a huge win for me, especially because I had thought that she was going to try her best to drag it out, but thankfully she did not try to contest it. I guess she realized that it would end up being a waste of our time, money, and resources because obviously the family court judge was not a fool. She had already refused to cooperate and provide the paternity test results, so I had to conduct one separately, but that was not going to change the results. She could hold on to it for as long as she liked. She could have held on to it for 10 years, but I still wouldn't have said that I was the father. Anyway, I was able to prove that he was not biologically my son, and because I had only been in his life for 4 months, it was not going to be very impactful if I left either, and that's why I got what I wanted. Since then, I haven't had any contact with Jade, and she hasn't tried to bother me either. As for my parents, I have heard from a couple of relatives that they have sold the business and are packing up to move away now. They have only told very few people where they are actually going, some people who still stood by them during this entire fiasco, but it's not difficult for me to guess. I think they are going to my uncle's place in Iowa so my mom can join her brother, and they can run the farm that she and my uncle had inherited from their parents together. It had always been her plan, and she had suggested it to my father several times, but he had never wanted to leave the city, and they used to fight about it quite frequently before. Now I think he has no other choice anymore, so he has finally agreed. At least this way, my dad still gets to be part of a family business, just not the one he thought he would be running forever. Anyway, that's all in the past now. I've been trying to move on from everything that's happened, and I've been going to therapy, I've been going to the gym, and just actively working on myself. I wouldn't say that I have healed completely, that would be a lie, but I am in the process of moving on. Some days are great, some are very difficult, but I'm getting by. Update 5. It's been almost 6 months since my last update. A long time has passed, and I'm doing a lot better now. I've been promoted at work thanks to all those months of drowning myself in work just to keep myself distracted. It was definitely not a healthy coping mechanism, but at least some good came out of it. Also, I'm divorced now. Came through a couple of months ago, but I forgot to post it here. Since there was not much that we had to divide and she didn't demand any alimony or whatever, it was a relatively straightforward process, and we only had to wait until the waiting period was over to finalize everything. So we are officially divorced now. I haven't seen her since then, but a few weeks ago, I heard from a couple of common friends that she had moved back in with her parents and was now raising her son with them. Until recently, she had been living separately in the house that we used to live in together, but I guess she can't afford the rent anymore without me, or maybe she would just appreciate the extra help that her parents would be able to provide. Actually, that's what prompted me to post this update because so far I've been very busy with my life. But then our common friends told me about this bit of gossip a few weeks back, and that's why I was reminded to post here. As for Grant, I think he's the only person who has come out of this unscathed. I'm actually a bit jealous of him. He seems to be doing fine from what I have heard from my relatives and stuff. But at the end of the day, he is still a home wrecker and a terrible person, so I think karma will catch up to him eventually. In the meantime, the only person that I'll focus on is myself. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My sister cut me off for years because I went to a community college. When she found out I was successful, she made up a fake business using my name and took people's money. I, 24F, haven't spoken to my older sister, 26F, for 3 years. Growing up, we were really close, we did everything together, and I used to look up to her a lot. But everything changed once we got to college. She went to a top university, and I didn't make it to the same level. I didn't get into any top schools, and honestly, it was crushing. So I went to community college to figure things out. From that moment on, things were different between us. Because my sister was going to a prestigious university, she began acting different. It wasn't overnight, but it became clear pretty quickly that she was embarrassed by me. I tried not to let it bother me at first. She was in a new environment, meeting all these successful, high-achieving people, and I figured that maybe she just needed time to adjust. But things only got worse. Anytime I talked about school, she'd give me this condescending smile. It was like she was trying to act polite but didn't really care. She made passive-aggressive comments about how I shouldn't settle for community college and even suggested that I should aim higher. It hurt, but I still tried to brush it off. Eventually, she started acting like I wasn't good enough for her anymore. At family events, she would barely talk to me, and when she did, it was like she was doing me a favor. I remember one time she introduced me to one of her friends as just a relative. She was genuinely embarrassed to admit we were sisters. There was only so much I could brush off. At this point, I was hurting a lot on the inside. I tried to talk to her about how she was making me feel, but she would constantly either shut me down or blame me for being too stupid. This went on for a while, and she never held back from admitting that she was ashamed of me because I wasn't as accomplished as she was. The final straw happened at a party she invited me to, which I now realize was probably out of pity. It was 3 years ago, and she had just graduated. She wanted to celebrate with her college friends, and I guess she thought it would be nice to include me. At the party, everyone there was from her Ivy League group, and I felt out of place from the start. They were talking about all these things I didn't understand, and I tried to fit in, but I think everyone could tell that I didn't belong there. At some point, I had a few drinks and got a little tipsy. I thought I could join one of the games they were playing, but I ended up spilling a drink on one of her friends by accident. Her friend would not stop screaming about how I had ruined a $7,000 outfit. I was obviously horrified and super embarrassed. I literally couldn't stop apologizing to her friend over and over again, but that wasn't enough for my sister. She completely lost it in front of everyone. She called me pathetic and said that she regretted being my sister. Her exact words hurt so much, but I'll never forget how small she made me feel in front of all those people. It was like she finally had the chance to let me know how ashamed she was of me. I mean, I obviously admit that I was very much in the wrong there. I shouldn't have drank so much, and while it's not an excuse, I only drank that much because of how anxious I was. That being said, I still don't think that I deserved everything my sister said. After that incident, though, my sister completely cut me off. She deleted my number, blocked me on social media, and refused to speak to me. I tried reaching out so many times over the years, but she wouldn't respond. She even told my mom that she didn't want to hear from me. She actually wanted me gone from her life. My mom has always tried to get us to talk again. Every time there was a family event, she would ask me to try and make peace with my sister. For 3 years, my mom begged me to attend my sister's birthday parties, but out of respect for my sister's wishes, I didn't go. My mom would keep trying to remind me that my sister was family and that family was important. But the thing was that my sister never wanted to see me. If it were up to me, I would have talked to my sister a long time ago. I didn't want my sister to hate me any more than she already did, so I stayed away. This year, though, my mom begged me more than usual. She said my sister had mellowed out, and that maybe this time would be different. My mom was so emotional about it, and I will admit that I missed my family. I hadn't seen them all together in years because my sister would avoid any event that I was invited to. I thought maybe things could finally be different, so I agreed to go. I figured I'd show up with a peace offering and hope for the best. I wanted to show my sister that I wasn't the same person she thought I was. So I bought her a really expensive designer bag, $2,000 to be exact. I could afford it now because I've built a successful career as a writer after years of hard work. I've self-published a book that's been doing pretty well. I thought the gift might be a way to show her that I'd made it and maybe she wouldn't look down on me anymore. When I arrived at the party, it was clear from the start that nothing had changed. The moment my sister saw me, she gave me this look of disgust. She didn't say much at first, but the vibes were very off. Just barely 2 minutes after I walked in, my sister asked in a super loud voice so that everyone could hear, "Who invited her?" It stung, but I tried to brush it off. I reminded myself that I was there to make peace. Unfortunately for me, she didn't stop there. She continued, only this time she walked over to me while everyone else watched us. She then loudly announced, "Community college trash, like you could never fit in here." It was so humiliating, and I felt all the confidence I had built over the years basically crumble into a huge heap on the floor. I stood there and tried my best not to cry while actively wishing I hadn't come. My sister walked away from me then and walked back over to her group of friends. I figured it was time to leave. At that point, I was clearly not welcome, and I was not a fan of being publicly humiliated. I waited around for another minute so everybody could go back to talking among themselves before I made my way to the exit. But just before I could get there, one of my sister's friends approached me and said she recognized me. At first, I thought she was confusing me with someone else, but then she started talking about my book. She had read it and even had a copy of it with her. She asked me to sign it, and I was completely shocked. My book had gotten pretty popular, but I never thought anyone at my sister's party would know about it. I signed her book, and suddenly the mood shifted. My sister's whole attitude changed. She went from ignoring me to acting like we were the best of friends. She started introducing me to her guests as the genius behind that book, and it was so fake that I didn't know what to do. Clearly, she only cared about me now because her friend was impressed by my success. I played along to avoid causing more drama, but inside I felt so betrayed. I stayed at the party a little longer until it got too uncomfortable, and I left. But my sister has started acting like nothing had happened and like she hadn't spent the last 3 years with absolutely no contact with me. Ever since her birthday party, she's been blowing up my phone with calls and texts, essentially asking if we can hang out and be sisters again. She keeps saying how proud she is of me and how we should reconnect. I haven't responded to her texts, and it's been a week since she started spamming me through every possible way of communication. I talked to a friend about this whole situation, and she told me that I was really rude for not giving my sister a second chance. Honestly, I do miss having a relationship with her, but it's hard to forget how she treated me when she thought I was a nobody. In her eyes, she only wants me in her life now because I'm successful, and I don't like that thought. I mean, I'm family, right? Why should career define how she treats me? But I still don't know if I'm overreacting or if I'm right to be cautious for refusing to reconnect with her even though she's trying now. Update 1. Hey everyone. Thanks so much for the responses and advice. I've read through your comments and you all gave me a lot to think about. I wanted to update you on what's happened since my original post, and wow, it's been a lot. First off, a few of you had questions about my decision to go and see with my sister. You're right, it wasn't an easy choice, but it wasn't a choice I made after the whole party incident where she called me pathetic in front of her friends. I tried for years to reach out. I sent texts, tried calling, and even asked my mom to help us patch things up. My sister made it clear she wasn't interested. She blocked me everywhere and shut me out. She refused to be anywhere near me and even had our family get involved. She essentially forced our family to pick between us because she refused to attend any family event with me there. Eventually, I decided to just not attend these events so at least my family could get together and enjoy themselves. That doesn't mean I never saw them, obviously. I just never went to another family barbecue for the next 3 years. At some point, though, I just stopped trying to reach out to my sister because I felt humiliated. I figured, why keep chasing someone who doesn't want me around? That's how NC happened, not because I didn't care, but because I wasn't going to keep banging my head against a wall. A lot of you also asked why I decided to go to her birthday party after being NC for 3 years. To be honest, I was reluctant. My mom had begged me to attend for the last few years, and she kept saying that my sister might come around if I just showed up. I didn't want to, out of respect for the boundaries my sister set, but this time my mom made it sound like my sister had really changed. I gave in because part of me hoped my mom was right. I wanted to believe things could finally be different. Turns out they weren't. Lastly, a bunch of you have asked about that party where I spilled a drink on her friend. A lot of you think that I omitted details from the story, but that was literally it. I was really nervous about hanging out with my sister and her friends because she spent the last 4 years talking about how amazing they all were while actively telling me how I was trash compared to them. Not to mention, all of her friends were from pretty influential families, and my sister and I came from a middle-class family. I know that I shouldn't have drank so much, but you also have to keep in mind that I was freshly 21 at that time, and I just figured it wouldn't hurt to let loose just a little bit. I never wanted to ruin the party or embarrass my sister in any way. I have always felt really bad about that day, and trust me, I did everything I could to show my sister how apologetic I was. A lot of you have said that my sister's reaction was over the top, but I don't know what to tell you. I guess she's always been a bit dramatic. Anyway, after that disaster at the party, I decided not to respond to my sister's texts right away. I needed time to process everything. I mean, she acted like I was garbage for years, and now suddenly she wanted to be close just because one of her friends recognized me from my book? I didn't quite like that. I eventually sent her a text thanking her for being nicer at the party, but I also told her that I didn't feel comfortable jumping back into a sisterly relationship just because she stopped thinking I was a loser. I said I needed time to think about everything and that I didn't want to rebuild a relationship based on my success. Apparently, that text didn't go over well. My sister called our mom to complain that I was ignoring her and being difficult. Then my mom called me and said that my sister was heartbroken and that she really wanted to make things right. I tried to explain that this wasn't about ignoring my sister. It was about protecting myself from more hurt. I told my mom I was glad my sister seemed interested in repairing our relationship, but I couldn't ignore how badly she treated me in the past. My mom gave me the usual spiel about family being family and how this was the perfect opportunity to rebuild our bond. I think a part of me snapped at that moment. I asked her where this energy was when my sister was calling me community college trash, and ignoring me for years. I told her that if she had spent half as much energy begging my sister to let go of her petty grudge against me as she had spent begging me to attend these events, maybe things wouldn't have gotten this bad. She got quiet after that and hung up the phone pretty quickly. A couple of days later, my sister showed up at my apartment without warning. I hadn't even told her where I lived, so I assumed my mom must have given her the address. She had a bunch of old photos of us as kids and started talking about how much she missed me. It was very strange. She kept bringing up things like how she's been thinking a lot about us lately and how we were always meant to be close. But the more we talked, the weirder it got. She kept bringing up my income and casually mentioned how successful I was now. She asked a lot of questions about how much I make for my book and if I had any other projects lined up. It felt like the conversation was more about what I could possibly do for her with my new finances than about genuinely reconnecting and repairing our relationship. Then she started dropping hints about how we could start a family business together. Since she has great ideas and I'm so talented, that's when I knew for sure something was up. I was uncomfortable and didn't want to deal with her anymore, so I made up an excuse about needing to finish some work and managed to get her out of my apartment. I haven't heard from her directly since, but my mom has been calling non-stop, and she's been trying to get me to give my sister another chance. At this point, I don't know what to do. Obviously, I miss the sister I had growing up, but the person she's become doesn't seem interested in me, but rather in what I can offer her now that I'm doing well. I'm not sure I want to go down that road, especially after everything she's already put me through. Thanks again for all your support. I'll keep you posted if anything else happens. Update 2. Hey everyone. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and somehow my sister has out-crazied herself. About a week after my sister's surprise visit, I started getting DMs from people, mostly mutual acquaintances and some of her friends. These are folks I hadn't talked to in years, and suddenly they're texting me about how excited they were about this new business myself, sister, and I were supposedly starting together. Some even congratulated me and said that they couldn't wait to see what we build and that they wanted to be the first to invest. I was completely blindsided. I had no idea what anyone was talking about. I figured there must have been some sort of misunderstanding, so I asked a few people what they were talking about. That's when I found out that my sister had apparently been going around telling people that we were starting a business together. Something creative and trendy, like a lifestyle brand or product line based on my book. She told them I'd be handling the creative side, since I was so talented. Her words, not mine. And she'd be taking care of marketing and sales, because she's great with people. I even got a message from someone asking if I was taking pre-orders for this upcoming launch. I was stunned. Not only had I never agreed to this, but I hadn't even hinted that I was remotely interested in starting a business with her, and in that field, too. And now all these people thought we were deep in the planning stages. I was beyond frustrated with this. I mean, who just goes around making these kinds of announcements without even a conversation? I decided to confront my sister over text because I didn't think I could handle having a conversation with her face-to-face after the last time. Even though it was over text, I wanted to be clear and straightforward because I wanted to nip this in the bud quickly. I asked her what on earth she was doing and told her it wasn't okay to tell people we were starting a business when I never agreed to anything. But instead of apologizing or even acknowledging what I said, she brushed me off. She told me that she was just getting the word out to build excitement and that I was overreacting. The way she responded made me feel for a brief second like I was the one being unreasonable. She kept going on and on about how this was such a great opportunity for both of us and how we could make a ton of money if we teamed up. She didn't seem to care that I was upset or that she had crossed a major boundary. She only talked about the potential success we could have and how I was being difficult for not seeing the bigger picture. At this point, I was done with her. I told her I wasn't interested and that she needed to stop. I thought if I made it clear how uncomfortable this made me, she'd back off. But instead, she hit me with a guilt trip. She said I was holding on to the past and being selfish by refusing to rebuild our relationship through this amazing business opportunity. She even accused me of being petty and bitter and said that I was too focused on old issues to see how much she had changed. I genuinely don't understand how she could say all of that to me without once stopping to think about how insane she sounded. Our old issues were literally her ignoring me and treating me like garbage because I didn't have the same life experiences as her. Besides, I wasn't going to let her guilt me into doing something I didn't want to do. I told her I needed space and asked her very clearly to stop contacting me. I thought that would be the end of it, but of course it wasn't. The next day, she sent me a bunch of emotional texts that basically accused me of throwing away a chance to repair our relationship. She also dragged my mom into it again and said I was breaking my mom's heart by not letting go of old grudges and giving our relationship a fresh start. At that point, I knew I couldn't keep doing this. I was exhausted, both mentally and emotionally. I tried to be polite and patient, but my sister refused to respect my boundaries. The only reason my sister wanted to rebuild our relationship was because she saw an opportunity to make money for herself. Honestly, I would have genuinely helped her out if she actually acknowledged how she hurt me for years and tried to make amends, but she kept brushing off what happened and kept trying to make me feel like I was the only person in the wrong. I couldn't keep hearing her blame and shame me, so I blocked her. It wasn't easy, and part of me felt guilty for doing it, but I knew I had to protect my peace. I didn't want to get sucked back into her chaos, especially now that I'm in a good place in life. It was hard enough to climb out of the hole she pushed me into emotionally, and I'm not about to let her drag me back down. That's it for now. If anything more bizarre happens, I'll update you guys. Hopefully that isn't the case, but we never know. Update 3. Well, I thought I was done with this whole mess, but of course, things had to escalate again. About 2 weeks after I blocked my sister, I got a call from my mom. She sounded upset and told me that my sister had shown up at her house. Apparently, my sister was crying and saying that I was ruining her life. Apparently, since my sister had been telling everyone about this new business venture of ours and really hyped it up, she was now embarrassed because people were starting to ask questions about said business, and she had no answer to give because obviously there is no business. My mom was practically begging me to unblock her and at least talk to her. She said that my sister was going through a really tough time and just needed my support. I'll admit that a part of me felt bad for a split second, but then I remembered how manipulative she's been throughout this whole thing, and I wasn't about to let her guilt trip me again. I told my mom as much and hung up the phone. I wasn't responsible for the lies my sister went around spewing. I didn't even know about this business until a few weeks ago. Then I found out through a mutual friend that my sister's situation was way worse than I thought. She didn't just hype up the imaginary business. Remember how in my last update I told you about how a few people even offered to lend me money as an investment in the business? Turns out they did the same with my sister, and she actually took money from them without even telling me. She collected money from friends, relatives, and random acquaintances who believed in the big project we were starting, and she didn't use that money to set anything up because there is nothing to set up. Instead, she used it to fund her expensive lifestyle. From what I've gathered, she spent it on designer clothes, fancy dinners, and weekend trips, all while pretending she was some hotshot entrepreneur getting ready to launch her dream business. When people started asking questions about the business, she panicked. With no project to show for the money she'd collected, she blamed me for backing out and leaving her in the lurch. She was telling everyone that I was the reason the business fell apart, which made her look bad and got people really angry at her. This friend also told me that my sister has been struggling financially for a while. After she graduated from college, she didn't land the great job she expected and has been hopping between gigs ever since. But on social media, she's still posting like she's living this lavish life that's full of fancy trips, expensive dinners, designer clothes, the whole deal. Turns out she's drowning in debt and is just trying to keep up appearances. I guess that's why she was so desperate to involve me. She saw me as her way out. She didn't reach out to me because she missed me or wanted to make amends. She wanted me to bail her out, and when I didn't play along, she panicked. So when my mom called me again, because of course she did, she kept going on about how my sister was in a bad place and how it was my responsibility to help her out. She tried to make me feel guilty and said that I should be the bigger person. She said that this was just a phase for my sister and that she needed family to get through it. But I was done listening to the same excuses over and over again. Her bad place had started when she went to college, and for some reason, she never pulled herself out of it. She not only put herself in trouble, but she made it her mission to drag others down with her. She didn't care that she was going to hurt those close to her. She only wanted to make sure that she looked good. I spent years feeling like trash about the party incident where I spilled a drink on her friend. I've read hundreds of comments since then and realized that it wasn't as big of an issue as my sister made it out to be. She just made me feel so bad about myself that I had no idea what was wrong and what was right. She cut all contact with me over quite literally a spilled drink. So this time, I didn't let my mom speak too much. Instead, I shut her down and told her straight up that I wasn't going to let myself be used, no matter how much guilt she or my sister tried to throw my way. I reminded her of how much of a nightmare and a bully my sister was. I told her about how my sister had completely ruined my self-esteem for years just so she could feel better about herself. And now, after everything, I asked my mom if she still expected me to be the one to fix my sister's mess. There was no way that was going to happen. I also told her that if she was so worried about my sister, then she should be the one to help her out, not me. I wasn't going to enable her bad decisions, and I certainly wasn't going to take the blame for her own mess. My mom kept trying to push me, but I think I reached my breaking point. Then I told her that if she didn't stop trying to guilt-trip me into fixing this for my sister, I'd block her too. That seemed to get through to her, at least for now. She wasn't happy about it, but I think she finally realized that I wasn't going to budge on this. I haven't heard from my sister since I blocked her, and honestly, I'm relieved. I feel bad that things turned out this way, but at the same time, I know I made the right decision. It sucks that she's struggling, but that's not my responsibility to fix, especially when she was trying to drag me down with her. I know a lot of people have commented that I should give her another chance and that family is family, but I've spent too long letting my sister walk all over me. This whole situation has really shown me that just because someone's family doesn't mean you owe them your time, energy, or money, especially when they've only ever treated you poorly. Thanks again for all the support and advice from the last update. It's really helped me stay grounded and feel confident in the decisions I've made. I'm hoping this is the end of it, but knowing my family, who knows what'll happen next. For now, I'm just focusing on moving forward without all the drama. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Parents always favored my sister and kicked me out over a missing bracelet. So, when Grandma gave me the family inheritance years later instead of her, they showed up at my door crying. I was raised in what most people would describe as a typical middle-class household. 2 parents, a younger sister, and a small suburban home. To outsiders, we seemed like a picture-perfect family, but anyone close to us would tell you there was always tension between my parents and me. The reason was simple. They adored my younger sister, Emma, and I was always the afterthought. But that wasn't always the case. I remember when we were kids, my parents were very loving and caring to both Emma and me. They showered us with affection, and why wouldn't they? We were a pretty smart pair, excelling at whatever came our way. We shared the golden period where nothing seemed to divide us. We were both enrolled in piano lessons, art classes, and gymnastics, and our parents were equally proud of us. I never felt any tension back then, no subtle preference for one of us over the other. But things changed when I hit 6th grade. It started with just one test. It wasn't even a particularly important one, but I got a bad grade, the first bad grade of my life. But it was enough for my parents to begin seeing me differently. I could tell something had shifted when my mother wouldn't look at me the same way she did Emma when she brought home another perfect score. The compliments they had once given me started to feel obligatory, while Emma's successes were celebrated with genuine pride. Suddenly, I was the loose string that could come undone at any moment, and Emma was the one who could do no wrong. At first, I thought it was just a phase. Maybe I was being too sensitive, but it became impossible to ignore. If I made a mistake, no matter how small, it was held against me. If Emma made a mistake, it was brushed off or, worse, excused. She's just having an off day, my father would say, while for me, it was always, why can't you be more like Emma? That phrase haunted me throughout my teenage years. As we grew older, Emma blossomed into everything my parents had ever wanted in a daughter. She was smart, popular, and outgoing. She was the class president, the homecoming queen, the girl everyone liked. I, on the other hand, became more introverted. I kept to myself, studied hard, and excelled in my own way, but it was never enough to compete with Emma, and soon enough I stopped trying. By the time we were in high school, the differences in how we were treated had become glaringly obvious. Emma always got new clothes, her own car, and all the attention. When she needed help with homework, our parents would sit with her for hours, making sure she understood every detail. If I asked for help, it was either too late in the evening, or they'd brush me off, telling me to figure it out on my own. They had started treating me like an adult while coddling Emma like a princess. I learned early that if I wanted something, I'd have to work for it, while Emma had everything handed to her on a silver platter. Despite the imbalance in treatment, I tried to keep a relationship with Emma. After all, she was my sister and I loved her. But it became harder and harder to ignore her growing sense of entitlement. She seemed to revel in the attention, knowing she could get away with anything. It wasn't just my parents who adored her. Our friends, teachers, and even strangers were captivated by her charm. She was the golden girl and I was the shadow in the background. I began to wonder if anyone really saw me for who I was, or if I was just Emma's sister. The turning point came one summer after I graduated from high school. I had been accepted to a decent college on a partial scholarship, and I was excited to finally get out of the house and start fresh. I thought maybe with some distance my relationship with my parents would improve, and that they would finally miss me when I was gone. I thought wrong. It was around this time that Emma started dating a boy named Jake, the star quarterback of our high school football team. He was handsome, popular, and came from a wealthy family. My parents loved him, of course. They treated him like the son they never had. Every weekend, Jake was over at our house, and my parents would cook elaborate dinners just to impress him. It was clear they were already envisioning a future where Emma and Jake would get married, settle down, and give them the perfect grandchildren. Meanwhile, I was struggling to get through my first semester of college, working part-time to cover the costs my scholarship didn't. I would come home on breaks exhausted, and all I'd hear about was Emma and Jake's latest outing or how well Emma was doing in her classes. No one asked about me or how I was managing. And to top that all off, they would also make snarky remarks like, "Why couldn't I find someone like Jake?" Then came the accusation that would shatter what was left of our family dynamic. One weekend, during a break from college, I came home for a visit. Everything seemed normal until Emma's new bracelet, a gold charm bracelet Jake had given her, went missing. It was an expensive piece, and Emma was distraught. My parents went into full panic mode, tearing the house apart to look for it. When they couldn't find it, Emma suggested that maybe I had taken it. At first, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She said she had seen me admiring the bracelet the night before and implied that I might have taken it out of jealousy. I was furious. I hadn't touched her bracelet. I hadn't even thought twice about it. But my parents didn't hesitate. They believed her without question. I protested, of course. I swore I hadn't taken anything, but my parents wouldn't listen. They were convinced I had stolen it out of spite. My father even said something along the lines of, "We always knew you were jealous of Emma." That hurt more than anything they had ever said before. It was like all those years of trying to win their approval, of trying to be a good daughter, had meant nothing. They gave me an ultimatum: return the bracelet or leave the house. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had no proof of my innocence, just my word, but that wasn't enough for them. They had already made up their minds. So I left. I packed my bags, walked out the door, and didn't look back. I cut all ties with them. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't stay in a house where I was treated like a criminal for something I didn't do. I found a friend to stay with until I could get back on my feet, and that was the last time I spoke to my parents for years. In the years that followed, I struggled without my family's support. I had to figure everything out on my own. I juggled school and work, barely scraping by. There were days when I thought I wouldn't make it, but I did. I graduated, found a decent job, and slowly started building a life for myself. Meanwhile, I heard through mutual friends that Emma was thriving. She and Jake were still together, and she had landed a cushy job at some marketing firm my father had helped her get into. It seemed like nothing had changed for them. They were still the perfect family, minus me. 5 years passed before I heard from my family again. I had to build my life from ground zero. The only person to offer me any sort of help and moral support was my grandma, my dad's mother, to be exact. Anyways, out of the blue, I received an invitation to my grandmother's Christmas dinner. I was surprised, to say the least. My grandmother had always been the one person in the family who treated me fairly. Even after everything that had happened, she would send me the occasional birthday card or text to check in, but she never brought up my parents or tried to convince me to reconcile with them. So, when I got the invitation, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go. But something inside me told me I should. When I arrived at the dinner, it felt like stepping into a time capsule. My parents, Emma, and even Jake were there, along with a few other relatives. The tension was palpable. My parents greeted me stiffly, and Emma acted like nothing had ever happened between us. It was as if they expected me to forget the past and play along with their perfect family act. The night was uncomfortable, but I got through it. Then, toward the end of the evening, my grandmother started handing out gifts. I wasn't expecting anything particularly significant, but when I opened the box, my heart nearly stopped. Inside the box was an old family heirloom, a gold locket, something that had been passed down for generations. It wasn't just any piece of jewelry. Whoever inherited this locket was considered the rightful heir to the family's assets. Grandma had received it from her father, and now she was passing it directly to me, skipping over her son, my father, and all the other grandchildren, including Emma. It was a symbol of more than just tradition. It meant that one day, everything my grandparents owned, their house, their land, their savings, would be mine. I could see my parents' faces go pale when they realized what had just happened. Emma, who had always been the golden child, sat there in stunned silence. My parents quickly shifted gears, trying to hide their shock with forced smiles. But I could feel the tension in the room. The rest of the dinner was awkward, and soon after, my parents pulled me aside. Suddenly, they were apologetic, as if all those years of neglect and unfair treatment could be washed away with a few kind words. They brought up how Emma might be getting married soon and how they wanted me to be part of the family again for her sake. But I knew better. This wasn't about family or love. This was about money. The heirloom had always been a big deal in our family, and now that I had it, they knew I would be the one inheriting everything that came with it. They weren't concerned about fixing the relationship because they cared about me. They were worried about what they stood to lose. My father even said, in a tone that felt more like a warning than an offer, that they were willing to forgive me for everything and start fresh. It was as if they had forgotten who had wronged whom in the first place. Other relatives chimed in too, urging me to be reasonable. They kept saying that family is everything, and that I should be connected with them no matter what had happened in the past. I could almost hear the cliches lining up: sharing is caring, blood is thicker than water, and you don't want to be alone now. Even though it's very clear what I should and should not do, all this pressure has got me overthinking this whole scenario. Did I want to be a part of this family again, knowing they only valued me because of what I now possessed? Could I forgive them, knowing that their sudden interest in me was born out of self-interest? Do you guys have any suggestions on this? If yes, I could really use some. Update 1. After the Christmas party, I went back to my apartment feeling overwhelmed. It was hard to process everything that had happened. I tried to avoid my parents and relatives as much as possible for the rest of the evening, but their attempts to get close to me were relentless. My parents kept throwing guilty glances my way, and Emma wouldn't stop smiling at me as if we were suddenly best friends. But I knew their intentions were less about family and more about the family assets that were now tied to the heirloom I had been given. Their behavior only made me want to distance myself further. The next few days were spent in deep thought. I realized I needed to have a proper conversation with Grandma. The brooch was important not just symbolically, but practically. It meant I would inherit the family's assets. That wasn't something I was actively looking for, but now that it was on my plate, I needed clarity. I wasn't ready to be tangled in family wealth and legacy without understanding what it all really meant. When I met with my grandmother, I was still nervous about bringing up the subject. I thanked her for trusting me with the heirloom, and then I asked her directly what it all meant. I wanted to be transparent. I didn't want the family assets if it was going to drag me back into the chaos I had worked so hard to escape. I would use it responsibly if it came my way, but it wasn't my priority. Grandma listened patiently, then told me something I hadn't fully understood before. She had been watching everything unfold for years. She had seen how the family had grown distant from her, especially after my parents and I had our falling out. She explained that she knew the family dynamics were messed up and that I had been unfairly treated, particularly by Emma and my parents. She even knew about how I had struggled to support myself while in college, working multiple jobs just to stay afloat, while Emma was always given a free pass. Grandma explained that she hadn't interfered all these years because she believed people needed to live their own lives. But when she saw how things had turned out, how I had been mistreated yet still managed to build something for myself, she knew that her assets needed to be passed on to someone responsible, someone who would not just take it for granted or squander it. That's why she chose me. She had already made a will and my name was on it. I was surprised by her honesty. It wasn't just about the heirloom anymore. It was about trust. Grandma believed I would handle everything with care, and that responsibility felt both heavy and important. She assured me that this wasn't about rewarding me for what I had gone through, but about placing the family's future in hands she knew would do right by it. And as much as it felt strange to suddenly be the one in this position, I couldn't help but feel a sense of validation. All those years of being the forgotten daughter suddenly didn't matter. Grandma had seen the truth, and that meant more than anything. However, even though this cleared up a lot, it also complicated things. The inheritance was still a looming presence, and I knew my parents and Emma were going to try everything they could to weasel their way back in now that they knew what was at stake. They weren't going to let it go easily. Update 2. Hello Reddit people. I'm back with an update, and things have gone from bad to worse. If you've been following along, you know my family situation is a mess, but I thought going back to school would give me some peace. I was wrong. So much has happened, and honestly, I need to vent about it before I lose my mind. After the Christmas disaster, where my parents and Emma basically begged for the family inheritance, I returned to my apartment hoping to escape the chaos for a few days. I managed to drown myself in work, just trying to distance myself from the constant calls and texts from my family. But of course, that peace didn't last long. The constant messages didn't stop, not just from my parents and Emma, but from my extended family as well. Relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly felt it was their duty to mediate the situation. They were all parroting the same lines. Family is everything. Don't let money tear you apart. And my favorite, you're being selfish. What made it worse was that these relatives didn't even know the full story. They weren't around when my parents disowned me or when I had to scrape together money for rent and food during college while Emma was living her perfect life with everything handed to her. They didn't care about the years of being neglected. They only cared about what they had heard from my parents, who were now conveniently playing the victims. I felt like I was being suffocated by their opinions. I thought I could just ignore it all and focus on my job, but then things took a shocking turn. One afternoon, completely out of the blue, my parents and Emma showed up at my apartment. Yes, you read that right, they came uninvited to my place. It was like they were on a mission, and that mission was to force me into some kind of reconciliation on their terms, of course. They were banging on the door, calling my name, and I could hear my mom crying from the hallway. I froze. My friend, who had been staying with me for a few months, looked terrified, and I had no idea what to do. When I opened the door, my parents started pleading with me right there in front of my friend. My mom was sobbing, saying how they couldn't lose me and how we needed to fix this. My dad kept saying they were willing to forgive me for everything, as if I was the one who had done something wrong. Meanwhile, Emma stood there with her fake concerned look, but I could see right through her. She was less interested in reconciliation and more worried about what would happen if I didn't agree to share the inheritance. I tried to keep things quiet, whispering to them that this wasn't the place or time to have this conversation, but they weren't listening. My mom practically pushed past me, trying to get into the apartment, while my dad stood in the doorway, refusing to leave. They kept talking over me, saying how Emma would get married soon and how the family needed to be whole again before that happened. They made it sound like I was the one tearing the family apart, all while trying to force me into agreeing to give up part of the future inheritance that, mind you, I don't even officially have yet. The whole scene was humiliating. My neighbors started coming out of their rooms, watching the chaos unfold. I was trying my best to handle it quietly, but the longer they stayed, the louder they got. My mom was on her knees begging me to forgive them, while Emma stood there looking smug, like she knew they'd wear me down eventually. I was trapped, and I had no idea what to do. I tried telling them to leave, but they weren't budging. Finally, after what felt like hours of pleading, I couldn't take it anymore. I called security, who thankfully arrived quickly. They were polite at first, asking my parents to leave, but my parents refused. That's when security had to get firm, telling them if they didn't leave, they'd be forced to call the cops. It was embarrassing on a whole new level. My parents finally backed down, but not before my mom dramatically said I was abandoning my family in front of everyone. As if that wasn't enough, Emma took it a step further. After leaving, she sent a mass text to several of my friends, telling them that I had abandoned her and my parents. She made it sound like I was the villain in all of this, leaving out the part where they had disowned me for something I didn't even do. Some of my friends were understandably confused, so I had to explain the whole situation. It was exhausting, and I couldn't believe how far Emma was willing to go just to make herself look like the victim. Now I'm not sure what to do. I haven't spoken to my parents since that incident, and I'm trying to move on, but their desperation has me constantly looking over my shoulder. I feel like I'm being pushed into a corner, expected to give in just to make everyone else happy. But I can't forget how they treated me. At the same time, the pressure is overwhelming. Part of me wonders if it'll ever stop, or if I'm going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life. Right now, I just want to focus on myself and my future, but it feels like my family is determined to drag me back into their mess. Update 3. Hello again. Reddit people, buckle up because things have spiraled even further since my last update. After the apartment incident where my parents and Emma showed up unannounced, things got even messier, and I had to do a lot of damage control, especially with my friends. First of all, Emma's little stunt of texting my friends put everyone in a really awkward position. I had to explain the entire family drama from the start, which was honestly exhausting. What made it even weirder was how Emma had gotten my friends' numbers in the first place. None of them had given it to her, so I was just as confused as they were. It was creepy, to say the least. My friends were supportive, but they were also understandably freaked out. They didn't know what to believe at first because Emma's message painted me as this heartless person who had turned my back on my family. Thankfully, after I explained the truth and showed them the pattern of manipulation, they understood. But it was still embarrassing having to air out all this dirty laundry just to clear my name. Then, just when I thought I could finally take a breather, my grandma stepped in. Apparently, word of the apartment incident had made its way to her, and she was not happy about how things had escalated. But instead of confronting my parents directly, Grandma decided to deal with the relatives who had been running their mouths about me. Without me even asking, she met with several of my cousins, uncles, and aunts to set the record straight. She's always been the calm but no-nonsense type, and she handled it in her usual quiet but effective way. It turns out my relatives had been fed a completely different version of events. My mom and dad had apparently told them that the reason they disowned me was because they had found the gold bracelet, the one Emma claimed I stole, hidden in my drawer. They said that's when they realized I was no longer trustworthy and cut ties with me. When Grandma told me this, I couldn't believe it. That had never happened. There was no bracelet found in my drawer. In fact, I had never even seen the bracelet in question. The whole thing was a lie. Grandma was just as shocked as I was. She had assumed that my parents had their reasons for treating me the way they did. But hearing this lie changed everything for her. She didn't hold back when she confronted the rest of the family, telling them how they had been making baseless accusations about me without even knowing the truth. She explained the real reason I was disowned. That Emma had lied and my parents had sided with her without even giving me a chance to defend myself. My relatives were floored. They had no idea they had been part of such a twisted narrative. Once the truth came out, I started hearing things from different family members that I hadn't known before. Apparently, my parents had been hiding a lot more than just their favoritism toward Emma. One of my uncles mentioned that my dad had taken out a second mortgage on the house to fund some of Emma's extravagant wedding plans, which was a huge financial strain on them. Another cousin let it slip that Emma had been a total nightmare during wedding preparations, throwing tantrums left and right because things weren't perfect enough. But the biggest bombshell was about Emma and Jake. I hadn't heard much about their relationship recently, but apparently it wasn't going well. Jake had left Emma. I was shocked at first, but the more I learned, the more it made sense. According to my relatives, Jake had gotten fed up with Emma's constant tantrums and unrealistic expectations. She had been treating him like one of her doormats, and he was tired of it. But there was another layer to it. Jake had also started to realize that the promises of family wealth weren't going to materialize as easily as he thought. My parents had hinted at helping them financially, but with the drama over the heirloom and inheritance, it became clear that things were a lot more complicated. He saw the writing on the wall and decided to bail before getting in deeper. This news spread like wildfire through the family, and I couldn't help but feel this mixture of emotions. Part of me felt sorry for Emma, despite everything she had done. But another part of me felt validated. For so long, I had been made to feel like the outcast, the problem, and now the cracks in Emma's perfect life were starting to show. It was like everything they had tried to cover up was unraveling in front of them, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Somewhere in the midst of all this chaos, my relatives, the same ones who had been so quick to judge me based on my parents' lies, started reaching out. They were regretful, apologizing for the harsh comments and judgment they'd thrown at me when they believed I had stolen the bracelet. It was strange seeing their sudden change of heart now that the truth was out. They kept asking for forgiveness, telling me they only wanted what was best for the family. But honestly, after everything, I wasn't sure I wanted anything to do with them anymore. I couldn't help but think, if it was this easy for them to turn on me based on nothing but a story, what's stopping them from doing it again? If my parents had been able to so quickly switch their opinions in the past, siding with Emma and disowning me, what guarantee did I have that they wouldn't do the same thing if another situation came up? It felt like I was always going to be walking on eggshells around them, constantly wondering if their loyalty to me was genuine or just convenient. For now, I'd rather take a break from all of them and focus on myself. Let them deal with their own mess without dragging me back into it. After all of this, my parents also reached out again, but this time their tone was different. They were no longer demanding or guilt-tripping me. They were almost apologetic, but I could see through it. They were still focused on the money, still hoping to smooth things over just enough to get their hands on the future inheritance. They didn't care about mending our relationship for real. They cared about keeping up appearances and securing financial stability, especially now that Emma's future wasn't looking as secure as they had hoped. I haven't responded to them, and honestly, I'm not sure I will. This entire experience has been a harsh reminder of how toxic my family can be, and I'm not ready to open that door again, even if they come bearing apologies. For now, I'm focusing on myself and the future I want to build on my own terms, without the baggage of their manipulation and lies hanging over me. That's enough for now, Reddit. Thanks for all your advice and support along the way. It's been a rough ride, but I feel like I'm finally starting to see things more clearly. Now on to the next story. Story 4. An unemployed dad stole my $9,000 college scholarship money to pay for a hotel, then lied about it for months. Now, he's threatened to kill himself when I confronted him. For context, I am currently a college freshman. I am on a full ride to my university. Every semester, I get a check sent to my house to pay off my housing costs, which is about $9,000. My unemployed father got evicted from my old address because he wasn't paying rent, so my family started living in a hotel. I was questioning how they were paying for the hotel, considering it was $150 a night. Turns out, my father used my college check to cash out and pay for the hotel for 2 months. I begged him to pay off my college housing cost for 2 months straight. He lied to me, telling me that it was attached to some funds which were hard to get out. Very confusing, but keep in mind I have absolutely zero financial literacy, and my father never went into depth. I brushed it off, hoping that everything would work for the best. My college housing gave my father a deadline to pay off housing costs. November 1st. I was stressed for 2 months, unable to eat well, sleep, socialize, etc. My dad doesn't pay it off, and I may or may not have to drop out. When the deadline hit, I called my dad and asked why he hadn't paid off my housing costs. He finally revealed that he used the check on the hotel we were living in. I was furious and started interrogating him like a prosecutor. He blamed the family for being responsible for using my college money, not himself, and also blamed me. He gave me allowance money for 2 months, telling me that it was from my relatives, when it was actually from my $9,000 housing check. I asked him why he would do this, and he said that he didn't want to stress me out. I cried, telling him I worked way too hard in high school for me to drop out. I said that he owed me an apology 3 times over the phone, but he refused because he thought he had done nothing wrong since he was providing for the family. I asked him again, and he said sorry in a mocking voice. I told him that he was full of shit, and he started saying that he wants to put a gun to his head and kill himself, and it will all be on me. This is not the first time he has done that. I told him to do it, and I hung up. My mom called me, and I informed her about the situation. She told me to apologize to my dad, and I told her, as psychotic as I may sound, I have no remorse, especially after what he did. My mom threatened to disown me, but I somehow mended things with them for 3 weeks. It is currently Thanksgiving break, and my father still didn't pay off my check. He said that he would get money Saturday to pay it off. My mom told me again to apologize to him after he paid my housing costs, and I said I would avoid conflict, but I think I'm way too stubborn to apologize, especially because I genuinely think I have nothing to be sorry for. My dad never fully apologized and made a joke out of me to the family. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. Whose name was on the check? Sounds like fraud to me if your name is on that check. OP. I'm honestly not sure because I never physically saw the check. All I know was that it was mailed to my old address, and my neighbor gave the check to my father, who proceeded to cash it out. Comment 2. Is this your first check? If not, what was the name on the old checks? P.S. This is my very first check. The next one is coming this January to my old address. I told my father if he didn't give it to me in January, I would report him, and he said he would give it to me, although I don't completely trust him, mainly because he did something similar to my older sister, resulting in her dropping out. I have a lot of leverage on him. Comment 3. Call the office that sent out the check to see what name they put on the check and on the envelope they sent to you. If he opened your mail, that's a crime, and if he cashed a check with your name on it, that's also a crime. Also, get a P.O. box and get the next one sent there. OP. There's also a huge part that I left out regarding this situation. My mother is an illegal immigrant, and if my dad goes to jail or gets charged, then she would have to go back to her country. I did threaten my dad with this, but my mother said that she would flat out disown me if I did. I also have little siblings too, so I would not like for them to have to take the fall for this. I think I will contact the school and ask them to put the mail somewhere safer, probably my dorm address. Update 1. First and foremost, immediately after this happened, I managed to get a separate debit card without my parents knowing. I don't have a job now, but I'm looking to get one later on in the semester. I didn't go to the financial aid center because my dad somehow managed to pay me back. I'm going under the assumption that it's through my grandmother's Social Security checks. Last December, after weeks of calling my father to make up for my scholarship money and pay me back, he finally sent me a check for $9,000. The check came in my dorm mail around midnight. I was asleep by then, and my dad was spam calling my phone to tell me it was in the mail. I didn't call him back until 1 o'clock in the afternoon because I had an exam that day. He started cursing at me, telling me how he couldn't sleep all night because I didn't answer my phone. I talked back and said, "The stress you put me through for 3 months by lying about my scholarship check is nothing compared to the stress you went through for a day." He started insulting me in every way possible, telling me that I was spoiled. I swore back, saying, "Are you effing serious?" And he hung up. Moments later, my dad made my mom call me because he didn't want to argue with me. She screamed at me, saying that I should always have respect for him as a father and that I should apologize for swearing. I said that yes, I did swear at him, but he did too, calling me a bunch of slurs and whatnot. She also accused me of purposely ignoring them when I made it clear several times that I was asleep and I had an exam at 9 o'clock in the morning, hence not calling them at midnight. I told her that we shouldn't even have this talk because he was clearly in the wrong in this entire situation, and every other kid would have gone to the financial aid center, and my dad would have gotten in trouble. My mom misunderstood me for saying that I was going to report my dad. She had a mental breakdown and hung up. Moments later, my dad called and told me to go ahead and report him because I would be going to jail instead of him because he sent me some of the money from the check, which is effed up. I called him out on his action, and he said that he was permanently severing ties so I could learn my lesson. He hung up. I didn't call them for a week until I realized that I didn't have a place to stay for winter break. My dorm closed. I swallowed my pride and called them back to apologize. They said they'll accept me back to the family. This honestly still keeps me up at night, but I literally didn't have a choice but to stay with them over break. Over break, they've noticed that I'm way more cold and distant towards them, and they still wonder why. Luckily, I got the $9,000 check from my university to pay for this semester's housing fees. The best thing that came out of this is that I ended up reconnecting with my estranged sister, F25. Long story short, my father financially abused my sister for years, maxing out her credit cards and leaving her $20,000 in debt. They cut all ties a year ago after my sister started dating a guy they didn't approve of. When I was on good terms with them, they painted her as the bad guy, telling me that she betrayed them by choosing her boyfriend over the entire family. I also didn't know that my dad financially abused her. Turns out, she was in the same situation I was in and ended up dropping out because my dad didn't let her take out a student loan. I talked to my sister, and she said that she was honestly glad that she severed ties with them because she's finally financially independent, even if she's not financially stable. We're closer than ever, and I probably consider her as a shoulder to lean on. Mentally, I'm really not doing well. I'm generally stoic, but this is taking a hard emotional toll on me because my family was my world before college. I always knew my father was insane, but my mother was my ride or die. I told her everything. I helped her through her marital problems. She told me everything, and the fact that she chose my abusive, unemployed father, the man that she always talked about wanting to divorce, over her daughter is heartbreaking. She still expects me to be her armchair therapist. And she told me she wants me to act like how I did before. I told her over break that no matter what she does, she will never mend back the trust one had for her then, and my father. Despite his flaws, I never expected him to use my check. He put such a huge emphasis on education and told me he wanted me to have the life he never had, and knowing he would sacrifice my education just so he could live in a fancy $150 hotel is very disheartening. Recently, I've been very isolated. I still talk to a few people. My grades are falling, and I haven't been eating or sleeping well. Maybe this situation should be a wake-up call for me, but I've come to the point where I'm completely apathetic about everything. I refrain from drugs, thankfully, but even so, I feel like my life is on autopilot. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. The best thing you can do for yourself is to complete your education. Stay focused on school and strive to do your best. Make friends and maintain contact with your sister. Also, seek out counseling at your school. They can help you deal with your family issues. Comment 2. Lock your credit, get a P.O. box, make sure you have your legal documents. Comment 3. You can order a birth certificate from the state you were born in. If you have that and a license, you can go to the Social Security office and get your SS card. OP. If my dad gives me my legal documents. Update 2. My dad stole my college scholarship money months ago. Now he's not getting a single penny from me. As you may or may not know, I made 2 posts several months ago about my father using up my college money. I also want to clear up some confusion about the posts. My parents are religiously married through the Catholic Church in another country, but they never got legally married because my dad doesn't want my mother to get a green card. And yes, in some colleges like mine, the broken education system in America still uses checks, but most people use direct deposit. I am glad to say that he no longer has access to my finances, and I am in low contact with him, thanks to the advice of this subreddit. I got my Social Security card and other documents months before I left for college. I also managed to get my first job. I distanced myself from my parents, and I took a lot of time to reflect on them and their actions. They also distanced themselves from me after I finally put my foot down and refused to give them financial assistance. They said that I was self-absorbed, and once again, my father told me he would kill himself if I didn't help him. And this time, instead of telling him to off himself, I told him, that's a decision he would make, and I can't be responsible for it. I realized no matter what I do, they'll never change. They will always be the type of people to financially leech off of others, using their suicide threats and weaponizing self-pity, but they're too emotionally stunted to see the faults of that. Their psyche is so twisted, and I spent a lot of time mourning for the parents I never had. They were never meant to be parents, but they're also people. Sometimes people like them exist. As for my mother, she completely turned her back on me and said that I was a TV villain for not giving my father the money he deserved for raising me and my siblings. I told her he was never emotionally present as a father, and neither was she, not just from the suicide threats, but also by being a threat to our well-being. She used to treat me as a friend and therapist, but rarely as a daughter. She used me to complain about the emotional and mental abuse my dad inflicted on her. But at the same time, she was also the person to turn her back on me in a blink of an eye if it meant protecting my father's feelings and making him happy. Sometimes she went as far as to attack me or my siblings if we did anything to make him crossed. I guess I still have a lot of pity for her, considering that she is an illegal immigrant in an abusive situation, but it doesn't outweigh the damage. It was impossible to communicate with her since she was her own little world. I don't think she really loved me or saw me as a person or a child, just an outlet for her emotional dysfunction. Recently, my mother called me and lied about my dad being ill so they could rake a couple of bucks from me again. I told them to find their own source of money and hung up. I check up on my little brothers every now and then. They're currently still living in the hotel. While their physical safety isn't harmed, I still struggle with the guilt of leaving them behind, and I'm unclear on what the future holds for them. This past year, I learned what it meant to be independent, not just financially, but to be free from their mental control and making those decisions for myself. Needless to say, I'm happier. I'm surrounded with good and caring people. My grades aren't great, but better, and I'm finally in a good place right now. In the end, everything's going to be all right, and even if it's not the end. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. Any chance of getting the money back? OP, I got some of it back through a family friend. I'm working my ass off to make up for the remaining sum of money. Comment 2. Stop feeling guilty. You are the child. If anything, be embarrassed that your parents are pathetic, and even that's nothing to be embarrassed about. Comment 3. Good for you. Takes a lot of strength to do what you're doing, a lot. I know things are tough right now, but you've got the outlook and strengths to dig in and build a successful life. I hope your younger siblings have the same fortitude you do. You can try to help them in the future, but if they're not willing to help themselves, they could turn into your parents and drain you dry. Stay vigilant, good luck, and keep us updated. OP. My biggest fear in the future is that my parents will use my younger siblings for their benefit and leech off of them. From what I know, that's pretty much still happening with my older siblings. Now on to the next story. Story 5. I proposed to my girlfriend, but my brother was furious as she was his ex months later. He suddenly knelt and proposed to her at a family dinner. What would you do if your own brother got down on one knee and proposed to your fiancée right in front of you and your entire family? Sounds like something straight out of a drama movie, right? But this actually happened to me. And trust me, it only got worse from there. A few months ago, I met Jen. She was everything I had ever wanted. Smart, kind, beautiful, and we instantly connected. At first, I kept our relationship private. But as things got serious, I decided it was time to introduce her to my family. One night at a family dinner, I casually showed my parents some pictures of Jen on my phone. My mom gushed about how gorgeous she was. My sisters were excited for me. But then Mark, my older brother, grabbed my phone, and his expression instantly changed. His face turned red with anger. "Are you kidding me? You're dating my ex," he yelled. I was completely thrown off. Jen had never mentioned dating Mark. Later that night, I asked her about it, and she admitted that they had dated, but only for 1 month. Mark had broken up with her because he was bored and never wanted to settle down. Even though their relationship was brief and meaningless to him, he still demanded that I break up with her immediately. I refused, and from that moment, things were never the same again. Months passed. My love for Jen grew, and I knew she was the one. So on her birthday, I planned a beautiful dinner with both of our families and closest friends. When I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me, she said yes. The entire room erupted in tears, except for Mark. I saw the rage burning in his eyes. But before he could ruin the moment, my sisters immediately shut him down. Then 2 months later, Mark invited the whole family, including Jen and me, to dinner at his apartment. Felt weird. He had been avoiding me since my proposal, so why now? But since my parents and sisters were going, we decided to give it a chance. The dinner started off normal. We ate, we talked. Nothing seemed off. Then Mark suddenly stood up. "I have a big announcement," he said, looking right at Jen. Then, before I could even react, he got down on one knee, pulled out a cheap-looking ring, and proposed to my fiancée. Right in front of me. The room went dead silent. Jen looked horrified. "Mark, get up. What the hell are you doing?" she snapped. Mark ignored her and turned to my parents. "Mom, Dad, don't you think she and I belong together?" My dad jumped up to grab him, but before he could, I punched Mark square in the face. He stumbled back, laughing like a lunatic. "I just wanted to show you that Jen doesn't love you," he sneered. "She's just trying to get back at me." That was it. I grabbed Jen's hand, stormed out, and made a decision right then and there. Mark was not coming to our wedding. A few days later, my mother showed up at my house, furious. "You need to invite Mark to the wedding," she ordered. I laughed in disbelief. "Are you serious? He proposed to my fiancée in front of me. You really think I'd let him anywhere near my wedding? He was just joking," she snapped. "You're being dramatic." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then she dropped the bomb. "If Mark isn't invited, then I won't be attending either." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "If that's what you want, go ahead, but I won't beg you to be there." She stormed out, furious. 2 weeks passed. Then my mom showed up again, pretending she wanted to make peace. At first, I thought maybe she had come to apologize. But the moment I brought up Mark's insane proposal, she rolled her eyes. "That was just a joke," she scoffed. "You're overreacting," I snapped. "A joke? You call him humiliating me in front of everyone a joke? You call him trying to steal my fiancée a joke?" Our argument escalated fast. We were yelling at each other when suddenly Jen got up to leave. And then my mother attacked her. She lunged at Jen, grabbed her hair, and threw her to the ground. She screamed insults, slapped her, and even tried to scratch her face. I lost it. I dragged my mother off Jen and threw her out of my house. She banged on our door for 10 minutes, screaming and sobbing before finally leaving. That night, Jen cried herself to sleep in my arms. That was the moment I knew I was done with my mother. I reported the incident to the police, but since Jen didn't want to press charges, they couldn't do much. But my mother wasn't done yet. A few days later, she waited outside my workplace and cornered me. She screamed at me in front of my coworkers, calling me a traitor. "How could you do this to me? You ruined our family." I stared at her, disgusted. "You don't want legal trouble?" I said coldly. "Then you shouldn't have attacked Jen." She begged me to withdraw the police report. I refused. Then she said something that truly made me sick. "Your sisters forgave me. Why can't you?" I stepped closer, looked her right in the eyes and said, "They can forgive you if they want, but I never will." Then I walked away and never looked back. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Karen claims to be the owner's wife in my parents' restaurant and ends up embarrassing herself. I am 18 years old. We offer snacks, cakes, candies, and several fast items in the small restaurant my parents run. Let us just refer to it as Joe's. It was named after my grandparents. Yes, I do pay. Normally, I hang out there with friends to have something whenever I have free time, and this helps them to pay as well. Working at Joe's pays me, especially on the weekends as it gets really busy. I pick orders and assist others with service. We do indeed have staff members. Along with paying me for the hours I work, my dad lets me keep the tip money clients leave after dining. Few of the frequent patrons are aware that my parents, the proprietors, also work there. I am the son of the owner. People commonly confuse them, nevertheless, for employees. One weekend, a woman, probably in her 30s or 40s, entered the restaurant with her bratty child, who appeared to be roughly 13 years old. Given it was the weekend, the place was somewhat packed. She was advised to take a seat on one of the waiting seats. About 20 minutes later, she sat down at a ready table. I went to get her order. I can't precisely recall what she ordered. Perhaps a sandwich or something. I handed the order to the kitchen and stood next to the register, monitoring whether anyone needed anything. Her bratty child was running around the restaurant, yelling, running over people, treading on their feet, even touching their food. Naturally, the mother seemed unconcerned and preoccupied on her phone. This infuriated me much. Hence I grabbed the child by his hand and angrily instructed him not to run in such a strong manner that he started crying and ran back to his mother, fuming. The mother stripped across to me. The discussion proceeded as follows. "How dare you touch my child?" the entitled mother says. Me. "He was flitting about, upsetting other individuals. Surely you noticed he was handling their food." "Well, he's a child," says the entitled mother. "He is free to do as he likes." Me. "Well, yeah, but under my supervision." "Do you even know who I am?" the entitled mother asked, thinking, here we go again. Knowing what was about to happen, I chose to participate. Me. "No, ma'am, I'm not." Entitled mother. "Well, then you ought to know. I am the owner's wife. You're getting fired. So you made a big mistake, and I will make sure your face won't be seen here again." I started to find amusement at this stage. I assumed she would say she was a friend or sister of the owner, but she opted for wife. Hence, now I could have some fun. Me. "Ma'am, I doubt you even know his dash." She cut me off. "His name is my dad's name," says entitled mother. She knew my dad's name, which startled me since only a small number of people knew that fact. Me. "Ma'am, please don't get me fired. I'm so sorry I was nasty to your son. I just have this job." Entitled mother. "You should have considered that before you touched my son." Me. "But ma'am, he was frustrating." She once more cut me off. Entitled mother. "Shut up." She marched across to the cashier and insisted on talking to the manager. Coming out, my dad asked her what was happening. Entitled mother. "Your staff member has been bothering my son. I want him to be let go right now." I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but I can't just fire him without reason," my dad answered after staring at me, then back at her. "Do you even know who you're talking to?" Entitled mother asks. "The owner of Joe's is married to me. Hence, I find this staff unacceptable." My dad smiled the most of all. Entitled mother. "Why are you laughing? I am sincere." Dad. "I apologize for any trouble once more. Are you looking for a refund?" The entitled mother entered complete fury mode and exclaimed, "You know what? I'm grumbling about you and your company on my phone to my husband. You'll have me sacked right now." We posted it on a board outside for home delivery orders. Hence, she picked my dad's phone number. She gave that number a call. My dad's phone rang. Shock rocked Karen, the entitled mother. Taking up the phone, he said, "Hello, this is Joe's owner. How could I assist you?" As if all the blood drained from Karen, her face turned from red to absolutely white. "Yes, I am the owner and manager of Joe's, and you are not at all my wife," he said. "And my son is the employee you wish sacked." She stared at me, and my laughter started to flow uncontrolled. Her order came ready just then, but by then she was already ashamed enough. Her child was wailing in the background. We still giggle about her dragging him out by the arm, not following the instructions, and without even taking the order. Man, I find it hard to understand how long OP let this continue before saying anything. He actually had not really needed to say anything at all. She called the number outside and spoke with the owner personally. Hence, the only reason the entitled mother discovered he was the son of the owner and she was not the wife. She chose the wife role straight ahead instead of other possibilities like OP considered, such as becoming the sister or friend of the owner. She simply asserted rather boldly to be the wife of the proprietor. I wouldn't have been able to resist shouting something like, "Mom, you finally came home," remarked one of the funniest remarks, then tried hugging her while faking tears of joy. Following up, someone remarked, "That would be awesome and hilarious. And I have a younger brother as well. Were you expecting Dad when you left? Is he a half-brother?" Better still, the larger the scene is, people begin by pulling out their phones and filming the entire event. Tell me what you would score this entitlement level 1 out of 10, and down below in the comments. Now on to the next story. Story 7. I think my sister's boyfriend is infatuated with my son. He's harassing my son via messages, and my sister doesn't want me here anymore. I'm a 33-year-old single mother living on a waitress salary. Times are tough right now, and due to unforeseen circumstances, I've had to move in with my sister for the past couple months. It's not an ideal situation, but I'm doing my best. I have an ex-husband, 40, male, who is emotionally abusive, hence the divorce. We share custody of my incredible son, let's call him Roman, 13, who has been so understanding of our financial situation even at his age. I love him more than I love myself. He is kind and intelligent. He stole my ex-husband's face, unfortunately, so he's beautiful. Every mama will say their son is beautiful, but my kid really is stunningly gorgeous. The amount of adults my age and older who have given him the creepy and unwarranted "he's going to be a heartbreaker in a few years" comments would alarm you. He has ADHD but maintains decent grades. He plays a sport and is good at it. He's got lots of friends who he visits often and vice versa. Despite the changes in our living situation, he is thriving, and I'd do anything to keep that up. My sister, let's call her Sarah, 42, and her boyfriend, let's call him David, 44, are well off and live in a massive house. My sister was happy to take me in, but her boyfriend David, not so much, which I completely understand. I offered to pay rent, but my sister won't have any of it, so I do chores around the house and cook as often as my work schedule will let me. I never saw much of David anyway. He was often at the bar with his friends or working or locked in his room playing video games. When we did see each other, he acted like I didn't exist. My son Roman was staying with his dad for a while as I was figuring things out, and I was worried about David's attitude once my son moved in with us. I talked to David and promised him that Roman would be respectful and well-behaved, but he was weird about it and shrugged me off. Then David met Roman. David is absolutely fascinated with my kid. His disposition changed so quickly that it gave me whiplash. Suddenly, he stopped locking himself in his room and has decided to spend time with us, well, mostly my son. He helps Roman with his homework. He watches all of Roman's favorite shows so that they can talk about them together. He buys him food and gifts. My sister Sarah is over the moon. She's been telling me about how us moving in has been the best thing for their relationship because David is happier now. I thought it was sweet at first, but in the back of my head, I think something more nefarious could be going on. To paint a clearer picture, I've noted some other changes I've noticed that I can't decide whether they're innocent or not. David texts my son often, which wouldn't be weird except he does it while he's at school. The texts themselves aren't weird at all, but David lightly scolds him for not replying sometimes. Before my son moved in, David was rarely ever home during the afternoon/evenings. He'd stay out after work and go drinking with his buddies until late at night, a habit he's had for years according to my sister. Now he's home all the time. He gets home before Roman gets off the bus around 3:15 p.m. if he's not at practice and stays home all day, even offering to babysit while I'm working through the evening. He still drinks, just in the house. Last Wednesday, I woke up to use the bathroom during the middle of the night. To get to the bathroom, you have to pass by my son's room. I was surprised to see that the door was closed all the way since Roman always likes it open because his room gets hot at night. Also, he has been staying up late texting his friends lately, which has caused him to sleep through his alarm and miss the bus some days. So that night, I opened the door to let the air in and make sure he was asleep, and there was David standing by Roman's bed in the dark. He stated that he was looking for his cell phone, but I saw him jump with anxiety when I opened the door. He left quickly, muttering something about how it might be in the kitchen. Why would his phone be in my son's room? And why was the door closed? David offers to drive my son everywhere he needs to go. Only him. School if he misses the bus, practice, his friends' houses. This is the same man who wouldn't lift a finger for me until my son moved in. It's been incredibly helpful since I'm not home often, but a part of me wonders if he's doing it for the wrong reasons. I caught David doing Roman's laundry, resulting in a few articles of clothing going missing. This one irritated me because I made my son do his own laundry. I asked him not to do this, but his excuse is that he is trying to save water. I don't know how to fight him on this since it's his house. I am terrified to bring this up to my sister. Am I reading into things too much? Am I silly for worrying that he might have ulterior motives? If I tell my sister and she gets angry and there's nothing going on, she'll kick us out and we'll be homeless. Update 1. Hi all. First I want to thank you all for your responses and suggestions. I am so overwhelmed by the replies and was unable to read them all, but I'm glad and terrified to see that I'm not going crazy, that there is something wrong. I also want to thank those who shared their experiences with being groomed or sexually assaulted, as it opened my eyes to a lot of things. Second, I'd like to clarify a few things. I did not let my child in David's car after the bedroom incident. I would never do that. After this occurrence, tied with the laundry situation, I began to take note of David's behavior, which was when I started putting the pieces together. I came to Reddit shortly after, and here we are, unfortunately. Third, I'd like to address a couple questions I've seen. David is not on any sex offender registry. But by saving water, David meant that he combines loads of laundry, meaning that he'll do his laundry and Roman's laundry in the same load. The laundry that I've seen go missing are mostly socks, which is typical even when Roman was doing his own laundry. But then Roman told me that he was missing a couple shirts and a pair of underwear. That alarmed me since this only happened once David started doing his laundry. Massive red flag. The texts are really innocent. David asking him what he wants for dinner, what time he should pick him up, discussing shows they've been watching. But based on his other behavior, it's clearly a grooming tactic, and I'll be sure that it stops immediately. No way in hell should he be texting my kid at school. The bedroom situation in clearer detail. I peeked in to make sure that Roman was asleep, and David was at the foot of his bed. The room was, of course, pitch black, and I was groggy as hell, so I didn't even register that it was him until he pushed past me to leave. I checked on my son afterwards. He was still asleep, and the blankets were fully over him. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but maybe I just intervened at the right moment. I made sure his door was open, and I left my door open as well so I could listen for any footsteps. I could not sleep after that happened. It wasn't sitting right with me. None of these are excuses, like I said. Eyes are wide open now. Fourth, I'll discuss everything with my son tonight once I get off work. A lot of you said it was a good idea, and I was already planning on doing it. He has not been acting strange in any way and is his usual happy self. But that doesn't mean that David hasn't done anything yet. That reality is terrifying to me, and I pray that's not the case. I pretty much have a clear idea on what to say to him, but I am not sure if I should explicitly tell him that I found David in his room or that he might be stealing his clothing. Any suggestions on how to go about this conversation are welcome. Fifth, I fully plan to confront David and talk to my sister Sarah about this. I am not a doormat, and I will do anything to keep my son safe. David is on a church retreat and thankfully has not been home for a few days. I've decided to speak with my sister first in case David twists my words or manipulates her into believing that nothing is wrong. And once he returns, I'll confront him based on how my sister reacts. Any other suggestions on how to go about it are welcome as well. Sixth, I've read your suggestions about setting up cameras, checking for cameras, drug testing my son, and finding his missing articles of clothing. I plan on buying cameras and drug testing him once we have a conversation. I did look for cameras and found nothing, but I'll look again. I am terrified of what I might see if I end up finding Roman's missing clothing, but I know it's just a reality that I have to face, that people can be so disgustingly vile to a child. Lastly, I know I need to get out of this house. I know that, and I'm working on it. If I could pack everything up tonight and do it, I would. I'd send him to live with my ex-husband, but he's abusive toward my son and me, more so toward me, but still. I've considered your suggestions about looking into homeless shelters, and I'm leaning toward making arrangements for that after I confront David. I'm a good mom, but I know I'm not the best mom. This past week has been hell. I should have intervened earlier. I regret that. Thank you for listening. I'll update once I follow through with my plans. Update 2. Hi all, this is my second update. My first post got removed, but you can find it. Apparently, it made its way to TikTok and Instagram, which I'm not sure how to feel about, but it's too late to take back now. In the past 4 days, I spoke with my sister Sarah, her boyfriend David, and my son Roman, all separately. One went well, two didn't. I have a lot to get off my chest, so this might be long. There's a TLDR at the bottom. My first conversation was with my son, which occurred the night I posted my first update. In fear of this post getting removed like my first one, I'll have to censor myself, but I think you'll understand what I'm referring to when I say that I asked my son the serious and explicit questions. Roman adamantly denied that David ever did anything to him. He seemed surprised that I asked. He said he would have told me if he had. I believe him. I know he could be lying, but I'm trying to take his word for it. My son and I have a very open and transparent relationship. The first time my ex-husband ever verbally abused him, he came straight to me and told me about it. My guard is up, but I have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like you all advised me, I didn't bring up the bedroom or laundry situation, but I was honest with him and told him that David's behavior toward him was inappropriate. We had a talk about boundaries, saying no, consent, etc. I drilled into him that David is not to drive him anywhere, text him anymore, and be around him alone under any circumstances. I also explained what grooming is and that it's what David has been doing to him. He said he knew about it through a school assembly. Then he said something that broke my heart. He apologized for letting David treat him that way, that he shouldn't have fallen for it. His exact words. I assured him that none of it was his fault. I want to make it clear that David is not preying on him because of how he looks or how he acts. He is doing it because he is a predator, and they prey on the vulnerable. Honestly, I could tell that the conversation had left him a little shell-shocked. To know that the person you liked and trusted isn't who you thought he was would leave any kid rattled. For the entire rest of the night, he followed me around like a lost puppy. It did break my heart a little to see him like that, but I don't want him to feel a false sense of security around David, so I have no regrets about it. Sarah was next. I knew it would turn into an argument before the conversation even began. It's always been that way with her. My sister is nice, but not kind. She'll take you off the street, but then throw it back in your face if you cross her. So I knew what I was getting into, but I had to do it not only for my kid's sake, but for hers. This is not a man I want her to be with, have children with, nor do I want him in our family. I told her that I was uncomfortable with the way David acts around Roman, and that I think it's a lot deeper than what he portrays it to be. I mentioned that I didn't like the gift-giving and the constant texting, and I brought up the bedroom and laundry incidents. Like I predicted, she was more offended that I was accusing her boyfriend of grooming my son. She didn't see how that was proof of anything. Do you know how many socks and pairs of underwear I've lost while doing laundry? It's probably stuck somewhere in the dryer. The more I expressed my concerns, the more defensive she got. She thinks I'm manic. Essentially, she said that as soon as things get good for me, roof over my head, food in the fridge, a steady job, I intentionally screw it up because deep down I don't think I deserve happiness. She tries to help me every time, but I end up stabbing her in the back like I am right now, so she doesn't believe me. That's her prerogative, fine. I told her that I won't be staying at her house much longer and that I don't want David around my kid anymore. That we'll be keeping to ourselves for the rest of my short time here. She's letting me stay, surprisingly, but she said she's glad to see me go. She swore up and down that David would never hurt Roman and that she was sad to see their relationship ruined over an accusation with no real basis. That I shouldn't let my self-destructive behavior and my bipolar paranoia get in the way of other people's happiness, and that I better not accuse her boyfriend of being a predator anymore. Essentially, she kept shifting the blame onto me, so I ended it there. Oh, and she told me that she wants reimbursement for things like clothing and grocery shopping because apparently we are draining her wallet by buying so much food. Yes, an 8th grader going through a growth spurt eats a lot, shocker. But I apologized and said I'd buy his and my groceries from now on. David came back from his church retreat Friday morning, which is when I confronted him. I was very upset, so I didn't go easy on him. He was thrown off by my hostility, but once he understood what I was implying, his demeanor shifted. Sit down, let's talk about it. He kept saying, except he was the one who was nervous and looked like he was on the brink of a panic attack. I kept my composure. I asked him why he was in my son's room in the middle of the night with the door shut. He gave me the same excuse, that he was looking for his cell phone. I asked him why he couldn't have gone for it in the morning. He said that he set the alarm to 5 a.m. for work and that he didn't want it to go off with my son in the room and wake him up. I asked him why he was standing over my son's bed. He admitted that he was trying to wake him up and ask him if he'd seen his phone. Did he not just say that he didn't want the alarm to wake him up? I asked him what on earth would compel him to think it is okay to wake up my child in the middle of the night to help him look for a cell phone. He said he wasn't thinking straight and that he was sorry. I asked him about the missing laundry as well. He adamantly denied what I was implying. He said that his and my sister's clothing get lost in the laundry all the time, that he would help me find my son's missing clothing, all while apologizing profusely. I'll admit I was thrown off by how apologetic he was, and it made me a little soft. I thanked him for letting us stay in his house, and I apologized for not setting boundaries earlier. But I told him that from now on, I didn't feel comfortable with him being around my son. No more driving him places, buying him gifts, texting him, helping him with homework, doing his laundry, etc. I essentially told him that he is no longer allowed to be alone with my son or touch his things under any circumstances. He broke down in tears. He was hysterical. The thought of me believing that he is preying on my son made him miserable, that he'd never do that. He said, "I love him like a father loves a son." When reading my original post, a lot of you believed the same thing at first. So did I. But I just don't like the way David looks at him. Yes, I see the kindness in his eyes toward my son as he helps him with homework or watches a show with him. But there is a nuance of something covetous and sinister that I can't shake off. Anyway, I told him that it's unhealthy for him to be so fixated on a child and that he cannot depend on my kid for happiness. I told him that we'd be leaving very soon. More on that later. I didn't tell him where or when it was happening. He asked if there was anything he could do to rectify the situation. He suggested that the four of us sit down and talk about it. I declined. I reiterated that he is not allowed near my kid anymore and left it at that. A small part of me feels like I was too harsh on him overall. Maybe he was just looking for his phone. Maybe it's a coincidence that articles of clothing are missing. But he was on his knees sobbing like I had just pulled the rug out from underneath him. For a child he hasn't known for that long, I don't think he was devastated that I'd accused him of being a predator. He was devastated that I revoked his access to my child. I'm not stupid. I once witnessed this man argue with my sister, brutal verbal assaults from both sides, which ended in my sister crying. He didn't shed a tear for my peace of mind. For your peace of mind and yours, I have been watching Roman like a hawk. When I'm home, he's with me. When I'm not home, he's at a trusted friend's house or again with me. I actually took him to work with me this morning, which he wasn't thrilled about, but whatever. I made him block David's number. Of course, we haven't been in the house since Friday, but as some of you suggested, I will sleep in his room at night instead of making him sleep in my room. I'll be honest, I decided to hold off on drug testing him because I really do not think David has been drugging him. My son is naturally a heavy sleeper and has always had issues waking up for school, even before we moved into my sister's house. I checked his text messages, and from what I've seen, he's never texted David at night. He's usually up texting his friends in a group chat. Like you all suggested, I purchased a nanny cam, specifically the one where you can watch the footage on your smartphone. I wasn't expecting it to be so pricey. I ordered them on Wednesday, and they are due to arrive tonight or Monday morning. I'll put it in my son's room and review it every day. I'm really nervous because there's a possibility that I'll see something odious, and I don't know if I can handle that. Lots of you have voiced your concerns for my kid. From what I've seen and from what he's told me, he's doing fine. We have been staying at a hotel for the weekend now that David has returned from his church retreat. I wasn't taking any chances. $56 a night and a little sketchy, but I don't want to complain. Again, despite the situation, his mood has been a lot better than mine has. He thinks a motel is the same as a hotel, so to him it's like we're on a mini vacation. It's mind-blowing how kids can be so resilient even in the most unnerving situations. The majority of you have told me to go to a women's shelter. I looked into this, and while it's an option, the closest one to where I live is more than an hour away. I don't have a car. I can take the bus, my usual mode of transportation, but that disrupts his commute to school and my commute to work. It's still winter and freezing cold where I live, so I'd rather watch him like a hawk than live on the street and subject him to the cold weather. And I'm not taking him back to my ex-husband's house. There's a reason why he left and why I divorced him. Which brings me to some good news. I applied for public housing a long while back, and I'm in the process of getting approved. They contacted me for documentation, which I submitted, and I got verified, so I think that's a good sign. I'm very fortunate since I know wait lists can be long sometimes. I can't believe I'm holding it together so well, but I'm proud of myself. I think I'm doing everything I can. Thank you for listening. I'll update again shortly with hopefully better news. TLDR. Currently at a motel after confronting sister and her boyfriend. Reactions were brutal. Son is safe and nothing bad has happened to him. Camera has been purchased and will be set up and reviewed daily once I return. And a deep search of David's room will be conducted once I get the opportunity. Currently getting approved for public housing, which will be my ticket out. Edit. This goes without saying, but I will of course talk to my son before putting a camera in his room. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My MIL tampered with my birth control, resulting in me getting pregnant 2 months postpartum. Not really sure what to do from here. Let me just start out by saying if you know who I am, please don't say anything. I created a throwaway to vent and cry and get support as anonymously as possible. I'm still very happy about the pregnancy, or at least want to be. I just need support. Thanks for understanding. My husband, 22M, and I, 20F, welcomed our daughter into the world 18 weeks ago. She's a darling baby and really pretty easy as far as newborns go, except for one. She wasn't a son. My in-laws, ILs, were obsessed with the idea of us having a son, to the point that they denied she was a girl up until the moment she was born. Why? Because the bloodline follows the father. If you don't have a son, our family name will die out because your daughter will marry a man and carry on his bloodline. So girls don't really count. The day they came to visit in the hospital, my ILs asked when we would be trying for another baby. We kind of just laughed it off, but my MAL got more insistent, straight up telling us, "You'll need to try for a boy over the next month or two." Over the next month or two, the conversation about us having another baby sort of tapers off into little comments every now and again. I had no problem ignoring them, and we'd already told them it wasn't happening, so I just let it run off my back. Around this time, MIL started coming over daily for a few hours, watching the baby for me so that I could sleep and also occasionally clean up a bit for me. She'd be over unsupervised anywhere from 1 to 4 hours. Fast forward to the present day. 2 days ago, my husband poured me a mixed drink, and when I brought the cup up to my lips, I got hit with this paranoid and panicked feeling. I immediately put the cup down and insisted we take a pregnancy test. Sure enough, it comes back positive. We wait until the next morning, take a digital test, and again positive. Based on LMP, I should have been about 6 weeks along. After getting over the initial shock, we were excited but confused for several reasons. We hadn't been able to get hormonal birth control, so we'd been using condoms and lube to make sure they didn't tear. So we weren't sure how we'd gotten pregnant, but we're happy with the news. We decided we wouldn't tell anyone because we didn't want another baby stampede from his family. But I'm incredibly close with my sister-in-law, SIL, so I decided to tell her after swearing her to secrecy. When I told her, her eyes got wide and started to water, and she asked if I was serious and if I was sure. I told her I know my husband and I are young, but between us we make more than enough to support another baby. Sel bursts into tears and starts to apologize over and over. Meanwhile, I sit there with my mouth hanging open and lost. She calms down a bit and through her tears tells me that my ML has been poking holes in our condoms pretty much since we came home from the hospital. She claims ML told her she did it, but she thought that she was just spouting because she was upset we didn't have a boy. Suddenly everything clicked into place. That's why the condoms didn't work even though we were careful with them. That's why she'd always shoo me off to sleep while she was around. And that's what she was doing when she was cleaning my house, snooping for our condoms. And she knew I wasn't on birth control because I remember complaining to her about how my OB went on maternity leave and I wasn't able to find another one that took my insurance at the time. I'm so angry I don't know what to do. I want to go right over to her house and tear her a new one so bad I can smell my tires burning in the blacktop. I'm also illogically angry at SIL for not telling me. How could you think this was a joke when she was so specific about everything she was going to do? Why didn't you warn me? I would have put my condoms in my room. I'm living with MIL. I'm pleased with this pregnancy, but it wasn't my choice. It wasn't even an accident. It was her meddling because she didn't get the golden grandson she wanted. I don't even know how to handle this. I want to scorch the earth, but I also still don't want his family knowing I'm pregnant, and I'm not even 12 weeks yet, so the risk of a miscarriage is still uncomfortably high. The only bright side of this whole thing is it snatched my husband out of his mother's fog so violently he's probably got whiplash. Personally, my pregnancy has soured a bit, so I'm really trying to hang on to any happiness I have about the pregnancy left. If you have Irish twins of your own or are one, I'd love some positive feedback on that situation. Where do we go from here? Update. First, let me clarify. I am 20 years old, not 18. I'm 18 weeks postpartum, not 12. 12 is when I would have conceived given that I'm 6 weeks along based on LMP. Second, I don't give a shit if you think this is fake. I honestly wish that it were. If you don't have advice to give, I kindly ask that you take your judgment elsewhere. Now that that's out the way, here's the update. I want to thank you all for your support and suggestions. Having a plan makes me feel way less panicked and overwhelmed. Sadly, what MIL did isn't a crime here, so there won't be any jail time or charges pressed. For now, the game plan is no contact and see, with MIL for me and growing babe once the truth is out. Before then, I want all the proof in the world she did this. I've ordered a hidden camera and I'm going to buy new latex-free condoms claiming that I'm suddenly allergic to latex. Hopefully she'll poke holes again and I'll have video proof this time. Even if I can't use it to press charges, I want all the proof I have that she's not safe to be around so she can't sue for grandparent rights, GPR, if this baby is a boy. I also have decided to change our family last name to literally anything else because I'm petty, and since she wants to act an ass over the stupid name, then nobody gets it. As for my husband, he's willing and ready to do whatever I decide. Currently, he's asleep, so we'll be discussing everything at breakfast. Thanks again, everyone. Now for some comments. Comment 1. If it is a little girl, I hope they name it after OP's mother or grandmother or another influential woman in her life. If it's a boy, I like the idea of giving him his mother's surname for a last name or something similar. I also don't think MIL should ever see any child that OP and her husband have ever again. Comment 2. I think you have solid grounds to go to the police and see what can be done. Maybe your state, if in the US, has reproductive coercion laws. She's fully admitted that she poked holes in the condoms, and you probably have the condoms with holes in them as I'm typing this. I don't know how you ever get back to normal after this. If you forgive and forget, you're basically telling her she can invade you and nothing will be done in the form of a consequence. I don't advocate for NC unless it's seriously bad. I advocate here because you'll be seeing red every time you hear her speak. Go to therapy so you can properly accept the pregnancy and separate the anger for MIL and your sweet babe. I wish you the best. Comment 3. This is reproductive coercion and it is assault. She never sees either of your children again. At the very least, she never has unsupervised access to your children or you. If Hubs isn't literally in the room, she can't be there. If she does, if you let her get away with this and sweep it under the rug, she will feel entitled to brag for the rest of her life about how she is the reason you have LO2 and how that's her baby and she's so proud of this completely sick thing she has done to you. She may do it again. She may do it to SIL. This is not a person you can ever trust again. LO1 will always hear about how she wasn't good enough because she was a girl, so MIL did this to you and now you have LO2, and isn't that so wonderful? Your daughter is going to need to be protected from internalizing that she is inadequate or that reproductive coercion is an okay thing to do. Comment 4. If I were you, I would talk to your local police department and or a lawyer to talk about legal options. If a couple agreed to use condoms as birth control, and one person decided to poke holes in the condoms without telling the other, so changing the terms of the agreement without informing their partner, that probably would be considered some form of sexual assault or fraud at the very least. It should be no different for your MIL. If you have any condoms left in your house, inspect them for damage and save them as evidence. I would also never let her around my kids ever again. She is taking manipulation to get what she wants to the extreme. That's not someone I would want influencing my kids. Comment 5. So either you call the police and do anything and everything you can to destroy this nut job's credibility and peace of mind. Tell everyone on Facebook, her church, put up her picture with a warning. This crazy woman tampers with condoms. Where she shops? Or I'll just wait for the update where she plants drugs or something to get you deemed an unfit parent to get you out of the way for her kid. Make no mistake, that is how she thinks. This might sound harsh, but honestly, if you don't both call the police and never let her near your family again, I would have to say you are not fit to parent. Do you want a power-hungry lunatic having control over your kids? Because she will never accept anything less than the level of control she wants. If you let her in, she will not give up. She doesn't even think of you as a human being. You are cattle to her. Comment 6. Not much to say that hasn't already been said. Going to repeat many comments. Good luck with both kids. Speak with your husband about the options with the in-laws. My family had issues. In-laws' two moms' parents talked and joked about beating their religion into us kids, and dad's sister tried to kill her own kids. My family did supervised visits in public, active parks, restaurants, church, with all in-laws/whole family until us kids were over 18 or relatives proved to parents' trustworthiness and equality. So you have that choice if husband wants to stay in contact with AFER. Change locks, get a door camera, intercept all presents. If it is a boy, raise him with the idea he can take his wife's last name or your daughter can keep hers and husband takes hers. Adopted sister and her fiancé are taking her birth last name. If you keep having problems/trust issues, you can go to a counselor. Most churches/community centers have or know great people to talk to for free or low cost. My closest brother is 12 months to the day younger, and we were joined at the hip until high school, shared a room till middle school. Learning things was easier with someone else learning at the same time. I always had my playmate and we helped each other instead of asking other siblings or parents for help. Comment 7. So funny thing, you don't have to name your children with your family name. You can name them whatever you want. You could give them a singular name like Cher or Sting, or to be more subtle with a great big U, you could give your child the family name of your own parents. When they become obstinate about it, you could inform them that because MIL messed with your health and safety, you have decided as a family that they will not be part of the naming convention. I am curious, it seems your husband supports your decisions regarding planning your future, but I don't see any commentary on how he is handling his parents. Personally, if my parents treated my wife that way, they would have just lost their grandparent visitation privileges and they wouldn't get them back until they apologized and my wife agreed that they deserve them back. Even still, I would have a mandatory 1-year minimum ban. What if you had been on birth control? Would she have just switched your pills for Tylenol? Because mixing Tylenol and alcohol causes permanent liver damage. Maybe she switched to aspirin? Maybe you're on an anticoagulant after the pregnancy because of a developed clotting disorder. Congratulations. She just killed you. If you got a restraining order against your MIL for you and your kids, it would not be too far. Comment 8. Once you've calmed down, you and your husband need to inform her that what she did was a huge breach of trust and that because of her actions she will never have a relationship with her grandchildren. She can't be trusted and no matter what craziness she spews. This is worth burning a bridge over. Her actions deserve scorched earth consequences. Don't let her threaten you with grandparents' rights because those usually only apply if their child has died. Plus, they have to establish a relationship with the child prior to filing, which as of now they have zero relationship with your next child. Excluding certain states with crazy GP rights, I think New York is one. Kindly tell her to pound sand and that she isn't allowed anywhere near you, your home, or your children, and that any attempt to contact, harass, or threaten you will be met with a police call and possibly a restraining order. Don't answer phone calls, don't let her in the door, and do not ever stand and take her words. Always turn and walk away. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Son's girlfriend called to say she's going to propose, but my son already has a ring and plans to propose first, and I'm the only one who knows both secrets. My daughter-in-law, a pediatrician named Lexi, called me today with the most wonderful news. She intends to propose to my son. Lexi is such a sweet, hardworking, thoughtful, no-nonsense woman, and my son always remarks on how loved and respected he feels by her. I have never seen him happier. It warms my heart to see him so serious with someone after all these years. She is truly the daughter I have always dreamed of. I raised my son as a single mother for 29 years and had to be both mom and dad to him. His father walked out after his birth. Seeing him so deeply in love and respected by someone as amazing as Lexi fills me with pride and joy. I get to be girly with her and share my love of jewelry, which I plan to leave entirely to her. The entire family adores her, and they are all excited to meet her. I already call her my daughter-in-law and consider her part of the family. Little does she know that my son has already bought her a ring and plans to propose during her birthday vacation in September. I am so happy for them. I cannot wait to see their futures develop as spouses and eventually as parents when the time comes. My heart is overflowing with happiness and excitement for their journey ahead. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. We are now all shipping them and cannot wait for updates. Please try and find out the information of when she is doing it and tell him so he can make sure her ring is there too. She's putting in that work. She should show off her bling from him too, lol. OP. She actually told me how she is proposing. It's also during the birthday vacation. She said she is creating a 2-chapter book with custom art of all their firsts in Chapter 1, and the proposal and ring in Chapter 2. She is very creative. Comment 2. This is such a wonderful story. I hope your son and future daughter-in-law have many, many happy years together. As a dad, I cannot understand how a dad can walk out on his own flesh and blood. When my son was born, I got the answer that every person seeks. What is the purpose of my life? To me, it was being this kid's daddy. Congrats to all of you. P. I was his 3rd marriage. He had 2 children in his 2nd. The child support was bleeding him dry. Didn't want to be cruel and asked for the minimum support. Supported my son through uni, law school, and his master's all by myself. Update 1. June 26, 2024. My son, Sean, recently reached out to me with a request. He asked if I could take Lexi ring shopping with me, since I'm in the process of designing a new ring for myself. He thought it would be the perfect opportunity for Lexi to see different styles and find her ideal ring. Sean shared with me that Lexi prefers something simple and not overly flashy. She told him, anything bigger than 2 carats is for ego. I would just like a simple solitaire under 2 carats with no fancy band and a meaningful engraving. While Sean, being a successful environmental attorney, wanted to splurge on something beautiful and expensive for Lexi, her preferences are clear. A little backstory. When they were dating and Sean was struggling to land a big law job, Lexi supported him without a complaint. She always told him, if I was in my residency and you had your big job, you'd do the same. We just have to be patient. It will come, and one day we will laugh about it at our wedding. Lexi does enjoy expensive things, but she firmly believes that her fancy habits and tastes are hers to finance, never putting that burden on Sean. I'm taking Lexi to my jeweler this Friday, and I'm incredibly excited to see her pick out her ring. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. I am so happy for all of you. You are an amazing MIL. I wish them all the luck. I know they will make great parents if they choose to have kids. OP. Funny story. Lexi has a nephew and always wanted to be a mom. She raises her nephew like her son. Sean never wanted kids. Changed his mind seeing Lexi with her nephew Mason, who also loves Sean a whole lot. Comment 2. How do you do this? Every new thing you say just adds more and more awesome and wholesome. Those two sound like amazing people and a great couple. I am so happy they found each other. Me too. Resigned myself to never having hope for my son getting married and starting a family. He said law school ruined him. Then he started his master's and met Lexi. Smiley face. Update 2. July 1st, 2024. Things have been moving along beautifully. Friday, Lexi has been looking at simple, plain bands with solitaires, ovals, pear, round, and my jeweler, Groovy Greg, has been taking notes on the pieces that caught her eye. Thankfully, when I was designing my new ring, she tried it on, and she's my size. On the flip side, Lexi got Sean's ring size from his best friend. She found a beautiful white gold band for Sean with their birthstones, sapphire. She even had it engraved, but she hasn't disclosed what it says. And yes, she had it designed by Groovy Greg as well. She is returning to pick it up in July. Saturday, I sent photos and notes to Sean for myself and Greg, and we are designing a white gold 1.5 carat solitaire VVS for Lexi. The ring should be ready for pickup in August, so things are rocking and rolling on both ends. I wish I could share this with my husband or ex-husband, but I know they'll spill the beans. Thank you for listening to this old lady talk about her updates. Additional information where OP has replied. OP on her son's father being at the wedding. My son told me that his father is banned from speeches at the wedding too. He has a tendency to make things about himself, and I would hate for him to ruin Lexi and Sean's beautiful day because he cannot shut up. OP on if Lexi's mother knows about the proposals. Altogether, her mother is aware of everything as well. So far, we are the only two who know except for Reddit. Update 3. August 5, 2024. Lexi picked up the ring with me last Thursday, and she absolutely loves it. Since I never had a daughter, I asked her if we could go to the nail salon for manicures and pedicures before my family reunion. It was such a special bonding moment, and I couldn't help but gush to everyone who would listen about how proud I am of her and how much I love her. I even saw her tearing up a little. I've never had a good mother-in-law experience myself. My ex-MAL pointed a loaded shotgun at my stomach when I was 6 months pregnant with Sean. Lexi has also had her share of a horrible MAL who would steal her money and speak poorly of her. It means the world to me that we can heal that wound for each other and build a loving relationship. Sean also visited me and we had a family reunion. I accidentally referred to Lexi as his future fiancée to my boss. I'm a bit worried that one of them, Lexi or Sean, may have heard me slip up. Fingers crossed that I didn't spoil the surprise. Sean is set to pick up the ring in 2 weeks, and we're all excited. September can't come soon enough. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. Women proposing is the generational change we need. OP, you would not believe how many people believe it should be the other way around. Have received rude messages saying she's cucking him. I raised Sean to treat women as his equal. If he feels cucked, then I failed him fundamentally. Comment 2. I've been following since the first post. In a world with so much darkness and hate, it warms my heart to read a post filled with love and joy. OP, when the engagements happen, you will have to pay the ring tax. A photo of their ring fingers with their new rings on them. Until then, keep smiling. P will do. I promised to share her proposal book and artwork with her permission, of course, as well. Update 4. September 13th, 2024. Lexi showed me her completed proposal book yesterday. The book is so beautiful and thoughtful. I know Sean is going to be blown away when he sees it. Meanwhile, Sean is still figuring out his proposal plan. He mentioned that the weather might mess with his original idea, so he's got a bit of reworking to do. I know he'll come up with something great. Had a little run-in with my ex-husband and his wife recently at a concert. Funny enough, he also suspects Sean will propose soon. We both agree that Sean's relationship with Lexi has always been different. So much more mature and meaningful than his past ones. His wife, however, wasn't too pleased. She's the only one who hasn't met Lexi yet, and she seemed a bit sour about it. She even pulled me aside to ask what Lexi is really like. I just told her the truth. Lexi is the perfect match for Sean. I would never speak poorly of her because 1, there's nothing negative to say, and 2, I've been in those shoes before, dealing with in-laws who weren't kind, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I'm just so excited for them. Hopefully, I'll be able to share photos of the art book after they've proposed already. Can't wait. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. Hopefully the ex's wife won't be the MIL from hell. P. My son had a tough time growing up because of her. Once she became his fiancée, things only got worse. She treated him poorly and constantly left him out. It got to the point where Sean would beg to come back home to me. One thing I'll never forget is when she told my ex that 11-year-old Sean couldn't be in her wedding because she didn't want any ugly people there. The fact that my ex went along with it made it even worse. Comment 2. I am supposed he did not cut your ex out of his life as soon as he could. Being left out of the wedding is unforgivable. So do you think your ex will be excluded from your son's wedding? P. Yep. We talked about it. No ugly people allowed here either. Now on to the next story. Story 10. My wife declared, Plenty of men want me. So I walked away, giving her the freedom to pursue what she believed was better for her. In the midst of an argument, my wife stated, "Plenty of men want me." So I left her to those men to handle. I never expected it to go down like this. It all started with a dumb quarrel. One of those minor daily things that you forget about later, but seem like the world is ending when they happen. She'd been on to me about something small as usual. Something about not putting out the garbage on time or perhaps not answering her phone soon enough when she was out with her pals. It was no big thing, except she'd been carrying a lot of frustration lately, and I was the only one around to vent it on. That is when she said it. Plenty of men would want me. She spat the words out, her eyes narrowing as she looked at me, challenging me to respond. The words hung there, weighty and piercing, more cutting than anything she had spoken previously. We'd been through tough times before, certainly, but nothing had ever made me feel quite this way. It wasn't the first time we'd battled about something minor, but this seemed different. I wasn't prepared for the rage that erupted in my chest. Perhaps it was because in the midst of the dispute I understood she meant it. She wasn't just saying things to hurt me. There was truth behind them, a fact I could no longer ignore. The truth ached. She was not the same lady I had married. "I don't care about those men," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, but it broke. I wasn't sure if I was angry or embarrassed about how I handled it. I was tired, mentally fatigued from attempting to cling on to something that seemed to be slipping away, but I wasn't sure how to stop it. The tension in the room grew. My heart began hammering in my chest as if it were trying to escape. I could feel my pulse in my throat, fingers, and all over my body. I wasn't sure how to calm down. I didn't know how to convince her that I was doing my best. I was trying to be there for her, but nothing was ever sufficient. She did not back down either. In fact, she appeared almost pleased, as if she had won something I hadn't realized I was playing for. "Oh, I know you don't care, but you should. Maybe you'd actually start doing something right for once if you did," she told me. Her comments were chilly, yet with a hint of something deeper behind them. Something I couldn't quite identify. Resentment, regret, a sense of accomplishment, as if she had finally found the way to break me. I wanted to say something, but my throat tightened suddenly. I wasn't sure if I was trying to save the person I believed I was fighting for or the notion of her, the one I'd been clinging on to for years, the person I thought I knew. She looked away, arms folded, her countenance unreadable. I could feel the distance between us increasing, not simply in the gap between our bodies, but also in the way she began to stare at me. Her eyes did not soften when they met mine, like I was no longer the person she cared about. I wanted to shout, to proclaim that I did not deserve this, that I'd been nothing but patient. Nothing except the present. Nothing but here for her, and she didn't notice it. But what good would it do? She was already checked out. I could see it in the way she carried herself, the way she avoided eye contact. It seemed as if she'd already decided. I felt little. Perhaps she was right. Maybe there were plenty more men out there who wanted her and could provide what I couldn't. But I was not going to be the one begging for morsels of affection. So I left. It was not dramatic. There were no slammed doors, yelling battles, or emotional goodbyes. I did not even pack a bag. I grabbed my jacket, slung it over my shoulders, and stepped out the door. Perhaps I should have felt more angry, sad, or confused. But all I felt was this strange, numb sensation of clarity. This was not working. She was not working. I wasn't working for her anymore. I wasn't sure where I was headed. I just couldn't stay there. Not now. Not after what she had said. It isn't like I hadn't considered leaving before. But this time it felt different. This time there was no going back. I didn't visit a friend's residence. I didn't call anyone to inform them what occurred. I simply drove. The kilometers passing felt like the world was dragging me away from everything. Away from the mess I'd gotten myself into. The silence in the automobile was like a shield. The only sounds were the hum of the tires on the road and the rhythm of my pulse. I ended up at a bar alone. It wasn't a classy establishment, but rather a rundown dive with the odor of old beer and fried food. But I didn't care. I ordered a drink, leaned against the counter, and felt the wine burn down my throat as if it was washing everything away. It was the first time in months that I felt something, anything. The bartender gave me a knowing look, but I didn't care. I did not want anyone to know. I did not wish to explain. Then the door opened. Someone walked in. They grabbed my eye. Just a fleeting glance, but I noticed how they stared at me. Not like a broken man. Not like someone who has recently left his wife, but maybe someone they could chat to. Perhaps there is someone they can be around. I did not know and I didn't care. I knew they didn't see me in the same way she did. And for once it seemed like it was all I needed, but I was not prepared to make any judgments. Not yet. The night was still early. I just kept drinking, letting the hours pass, feeling a strange sense of liberation develop within me. And then I heard her name. A voice sounded from behind me. She said she'd leave you. I glanced around, expecting to see someone I know, but the man speaking was unfamiliar. Nonetheless, his comments wounded deeply. What the hell? I turned slowly, trying to figure out why the stranger's comments felt like a punch in the gut. He was seated a few stools down, nursing his own drink, his gaze occasionally traveling to mine as he spoke. She said she'd leave you. He continued more casually this time, as if we were already having the conversation. My heart stuttered. My mind raced to catch up and grasp what this guy was expressing. Was he speaking about my wife? How in the hell did he know? Had she told anyone? Had she been informing others? I wasn't sure what to say. I just gazed at him, trying to decide if I should stand up and leave or ask him to elaborate. Who the hell are you? I finally managed to speak, though the words came out colder than I wanted. I was not searching for a confrontation, but I couldn't control myself. This guy knew something, and it made my stomach turn. He smirked as if he had been waiting for this moment. But instead of providing an explanation, he simply shrugged as if the solution were obvious. She didn't think you'd leave, he explained. Thought you'd just hang around, put up with whatever she threw at you. My mind was whirling. He had the audacity to talk about my life as if he knew everything. What did he know? What had she told him? I grasped the edge of the bar to keep myself stable, but there was an uncomfortable sensation crawling up my spine. Why are you telling me this? I inquired, my voice a little more calm now, but the anxiety was setting in. My fingers remained tight over my glass, as if it were necessary to keep me grounded. He took a slow sip from his drink and continued to act as if we were having a normal chat, as if he were some sort of confidant or something else. He did not appear to be uncomfortable. She came in here a few weeks ago, stated the worker, with someone else. I froze. My mind immediately flashed back to every time I had doubted her faithfulness. Every tiny adjustment in her behavior, every unusual excuse. What do you mean, with someone else? I inquired, already anticipating the response. The man's eyes shifted to me, this time sharper, as if he knew he had my entire attention. I mean, she came in here with another guy. They were really cozy. She didn't even notice me watching. Guess she thought I was just another regular at the bar. I felt nauseous. I'd never had any tangible evidence of her unfaithfulness before. But hearing that from a stranger, someone who appeared so certain, felt like a brick slamming into my chest. I wanted to yell at him, to demand information, to get him to return it, but I could not find the words. Instead, I found myself leaning forward, my elbows on the bar, as if being closer would make everything seem less real. You're sure? My voice was lower and almost pleading. I hated myself for asking, but I couldn't resist. I needed to know. The man leaned back and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Oh yeah, she was laughing, touching his arm, getting pretty close. She didn't even care who saw. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, loud and quick. My entire body was on fire, but I didn't feel angry. It was a deep, gnawing ache, as if someone had chiseled out a portion of me that I had no idea existed. I wasn't sure what was worse. The possibility that she had been with someone else, or that she had not given it a second consideration. I don't think she cares much about you anymore, the man said nonchalantly, as if he were merely giving general advice. He gave me a look that made me feel vulnerable, as if he knew something I didn't want to disclose. I wasn't sure what to say. I could feel myself beginning to unravel piece by piece. Everything she had stated, the things I had disregarded or attributed to stress or something else. Was it all leading up to this? Was this the moment when everything I thought I knew about my life, my relationship, fell apart? I gazed at the man, hoping for a response, some kind of closure, but he wasn't offering anything else. He drank his drink, looked aside, and signaled for another. As if this wasn't a significant issue to him, I wanted to shout, but I did not. I left. I scarcely noticed the stroll to my car. The frigid air pierced through me. The engine hums as it starts up. It seemed like everything had changed in an instant, like the world was no longer a place where I could simply glide along, thinking everything was all right. As I traveled into the night, my mind was racing with ideas and possibilities. I wasn't sure where I was headed anymore. I wasn't sure if I was escaping from her or simply attempting to escape the sense of betrayal that had settled into my bones. I eventually pulled into a parking lot, one I did not recognize. The silence of the night surrounded me. The only sound was the gentle hum of the car's engine. I looked out the window, attempting to make sense of what had just occurred. But something else was nagging at me now. Something I didn't consider in the excitement of the moment. What if I wasn't the only person who had left? What if she were waiting for me to leave so she could finally make her own decisions? I wasn't certain I wanted to find out, but I knew I needed to. I spent the next 3 days in a blur, mostly driving around trying to clear my mind, but the ideas did not stop. Every street reminded me of her, of everything we had built, and everything was crumbling apart. My phone rang several times, but I didn't have the energy to respond. I did not want to hear from her. Not yet. Not while everything seemed so raw. Then came the message, a basic text. Nevertheless, it felt like a bomb exploded in my lap. We need to talk. I looked at the text on the screen. My hand shook slightly as I read them repeatedly. I wasn't sure what she would say, but I could feel the tempest brewing inside me again. I did not want to chat. Not yet. Not while things remained so ambiguous. But I could not ignore it. I needed to know where we stood. I responded simply, I will be there. When I arrived at the residence, it was really silent. The front door was slightly ajar. The silence inside felt almost ominous. It was too vacant, too still. She sat at the kitchen table with her hands folded together. She seemed smaller than I remembered. When she saw me, her eyes were a jumble of things. Guilt perhaps, or fear. I could not tell. There was also something else there. Something I couldn't quite identify. She didn't look at me the same way she had previously. Not the way I was used to seeing her. Her glance was not warm. No connection. I didn't know where else to start, she explained, breaking the stillness. Her voice was soft yet steady. I owe you an explanation. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Felt thick. You owe me more than that. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. I needed answers. I wanted something to make sense of this chaos. She did not respond to the severity of my tone. Instead, she groaned and looked down at her hands. I never meant for things to get this bad. But things weren't right, were they? I didn't know how to fix it. And maybe I wasn't even trying anymore. I simply stared at her, my thoughts reeling. She was not even trying. That is what it boiled down to. I had overlooked all those subtle signs, all those occasions when I should have asked inquiries. I'd been too busy pretending that everything could be mended, that we could return to the way things used to be. She took a deep breath. For a brief moment, I thought she might cry. However, she didn't. Instead, she proceeded. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought if I pushed you far enough, you'd be the one to walk away. It would have been easier that way, right? But you didn't. You stuck around. And I kept pushing. And then when I met someone else, she paused. I don't know. It felt like I was already done before it even started. My brain was spinning. Someone else. The words struck me harder than expected. It wasn't only the argument or her snarky remarks. It wasn't only that she appeared distant and frigid. She'd actually been with someone. What the hell are you talking about? I eventually choked out. My hands were clenched, but I was scarcely conscious of them. You think you can just go out and do whatever you want and I wouldn't notice? I didn't believe I was living in a fiction, but perhaps I was. Perhaps she was. She looked up at me, her eyes full of something. Regret. I never wanted to hurt you, but I wasn't happy. Couldn't tell you that. I didn't know how. The silence stretched between us, a chasm that seemed impossible to cross. All these years, all of the moments we had shared. So here we were sitting in the kitchen. Strangers. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. So what now? You just expect me to walk back into this like nothing happened? I shook my head, my frustration finally spilling out. You think I just forget that I let you shut me out like that and then come back? I'm sorry, she whispered. Her face wrinkled, but she did not respond. Instead, she looked away as if she couldn't take the weight of my words. I stepped back and ran my hand through my hair, attempting to think, attempting to breathe. You were right about one thing, I told her. My voice was shaking now, even though I fought to keep it steady. I did leave. You wanted me to go, and I did, but not for the reasons you think. She blinked, a scowl forming on her forehead. What do you mean? I felt a rush of bitter laughter rise in my chest, but I did not let it out. Not yet. I left because I finally saw it. I saw that you don't see me anymore. I'm just someone you're stuck with. Someone who will always be here no matter how much you push. You made me feel small, and then you decided it wasn't enough. So, you found someone else. Her voice was scarcely audible now. It wasn't like that. It was a mistake. An error. I scoffed as the ache in my chest made it difficult to breathe. You don't just make a mistake like that. You make choices. You make decisions. And you chose him. The hush that followed was smothering. Neither of us knew what to say next because the truth came out. It was in the air, heavy and obvious. She'd betrayed me, and I had to make a decision. Can I live with that? Could I even attempt to restore what we had? Or was it simply too far gone? I turned towards the door. My body felt weary. My heart was broken. But something inside me stood taller than it has in months. I can't do this anymore, I murmured quietly. I'm done. I walked out the door without saying another word. I did not glance back. And as I drove away, the weight on my chest gradually lifted little by little. The route ahead was unclear. It was not easy. For the first time in a long while, I was making my own decision. And maybe that was all I needed to do. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Am I the jerk for exposing my dad's girlfriend after she tried to kick me out and faked a pregnancy? I'm M20, and I was a former foster kid. I was never adopted before I aged out, but I was placed with Joe when I was 10, and we were long-term matched by the time I was 14. Joe's the only real family I've ever had, and I consider him my dad, even though the whole adoption thing never happened. When I first moved in with Joe, he was married, but his wife passed away suddenly when I was 12. That was tough on both of us, but we managed to get through it together. Now Joe's been dating his current girlfriend, Sarah, for about 2 years. She didn't come over much, and when she did, it was pretty brief. But 3 weeks ago, she moved into our house because she lost her job and couldn't afford rent anymore. I don't know if she was always like this, or if moving in has brought out a different side of her, but Sarah's been acting really strange. Whenever Joe isn't around, she completely ignores me, like won't even look at me when I speak, won't answer questions, nothing. At first, I thought it might be some kind of anxiety thing, but now it started getting worse. For example, when Joe's at work and I'm in the lounge watching a movie, she'll come in and start blasting TikTok on her phone or playing music, totally disregarding the fact that I'm there. When I ask her to turn it down, she just flat out ignores me. And it's not just the ignoring that's the problem. She started saying some pretty nasty stuff about me too. She FaceTimed her friend while I was in the room and talked about how lazy I am and how I don't contribute anything to the household. Yesterday, I was sitting on the sofa watching the new Deadpool movie when she came and sat across from me, FaceTiming her friend again. She started talking about how she and Joe are trying for a baby and how excited they are because neither of them have had children before. Those exact words. Felt like a slap in the face. I know Joe wouldn't have said something like that because he considers me his son. So either she's making it up, or I don't even know what. I haven't told Joe about the things she's been saying to her friend because I don't want to mess up his first real relationship since his wife died. But this situation is seriously eating me up inside. I mentioned the situation to a few people, and a couple of them suggested that I secretly record her behavior when Joe isn't around so that he can see what's really going on. It seemed like a good idea at first, but when I talked to one of my close friends about it, he said that secretly recording her could just make things worse. He thinks it might make Joe feel like I'm going behind his back and could cause even more tension, especially if Sarah twists it to make me look bad. So, would I be the jerk if I secretly recorded her to show Joe what she's really like, or should I just avoid it altogether? I don't want to seem like I'm trying to sabotage his relationship, but I'm not sure what else to do. Relevant comments. Comment 1. You need to talk to Joe. You can record it in case he doesn't believe you, but you need to talk to him ASAP. And you might also have to work on your exit plan in case it backfires, which it can. People in love do strange things at times. NTA. P. I don't think Joe would ever kick me out, but you're right. I should have a backup plan just in case. Comment 2. So many parents kick out kids when a new relationship forms and the kid doesn't get on with the new spouse. Don't be blindsided by something that is a huge possibility. You're an adult. Joe's GF could have the very easy argument that you're an adult and need to move out so they can work on furthering their relationship. Having a child together would absolutely be a reason he would side with her. NTA. Comment 3. You have only explained that you lounge and watch TV. Are you contributing to the household in any way? If Joe's GF is contributing to the household, I can see why she would have an issue with you floating. OP. Well, I'm still at college. Americans would call this high school, but it's summer. As a foster care leaver, Joe is paid £300 per week by the government to support me until I finish. This will carry on until I finish university or until I'm 25, whichever is first. I also get universal credit, which I use for most of my expenses. OP goes on to state, high school usually ends at 18 here also, but I've had to redo some learning that I missed. Comment 4. Get your ass off the couch and contribute to the home. Seems to me you are too stupid to realize that he will pick his girlfriend/bedmate over a 20-year-old taking up space and pissing off his hot girlfriend. You don't realize it, but unless you start contributing, your days are numbered. So you're off school for the summer. Why don't you have a job to go to every day instead of sitting your ass on the couch? OP. Who hurt you? Comment 5. Nobody hurt me, but I did have enough common sense to get my ass off the couch and not play video games as a 20-year-old and then complain about somebody who actually is contributing to the household. If he doesn't believe the girlfriend is more important to Joe than he is, he has blinders on. Just wait until she has a baby. He needs to wake up and get his ass off the couch and contribute to the family. 20 years old is not a time to be sitting on the couch playing video games. To get a job. Comment 6. It's time to fly out of the nest. Find a job and/or college. Build your own life. You are an adult young male with lots of opportunities. Comment 7. This young man didn't have a stable home until he was 10. He went through a traumatic childhood, and his life's trajectory is not the same as most people's. So developmentally, it may be important for him to take a little longer to feel safe and confident. Hell, he's still finishing his secondary education due to those complications, and you have literally no idea what opportunities he does or doesn't have. As long as his father is happy to have him there, who are you to tell him he needs to leave home? What a shitty, presumptuous thing to say. Comment 8. Going to school isn't contributing to the household. Doing chores, taking out the trash, preparing dinner, doing laundry, sweeping the floors, vacuuming, doing repairs around the house. Contributing to the sustainment of your family's home and health of it so it doesn't burden others. That's my responsibility. If she finds herself or Joe doing all of this, then I would be annoyed as well. You're an adult. As an adult, you should be contributing without being told the responsibilities of maintaining the home. I would say getting a job as well. At your age, many folks go to school and have a part-time job, but if that's not the case, you can help around the house. I guarantee if you're doing those things, Joe and possibly her will have a different, positive opinion of you. Update 1. I decided to talk to Joe directly instead of secretly recording Sarah. I thought it would be more mature sensible, and non-confrontational to handle things face to face. My mindset was that if he didn't take it seriously, then I'd consider recording to show him what was really going on. When Joe got home from work, I asked him to talk privately in my room. He seemed a bit confused at first, but I made it clear that I wasn't trying to sabotage his relationship. I just needed to tell him that some things Sarah was doing were making me uncomfortable. I reminded him about how she ignores me and mentioned how she plays videos while I'm watching TV. But when I told him, she said that he didn't have any children and that they were trying for a baby, he looked really upset. It felt a bit awkward, but Joe called Sarah into the room to talk with us. He asked her if what I said was true, and she immediately denied it. You could see from her body language that she was lying. I'm not sure if she just never expected me to say anything about how she's been treating me or what. Joe firmly told her that this is my house, not hers, and that while she's a guest here, she can't be disrespecting me. Things got a little heated, and in the end, she apologized to me, though it was through gritted teeth. I accepted the apology, even though I'm not sure it was genuine. After that, Joe asked if I was still comfortable with her staying with us. I said I was because I didn't want to break them up. I just wanted to tell him what was happening. However, she decided to stay at her friend's house for the night, which made the situation feel even more tense. I can tell Joe is really upset now, and I feel super guilty for making him feel this way. He insists it's not my fault, and we ended up having kebabs for tea, but even so, I can't shake the feeling that I've caused a huge fight between them. Joe went to bed early, and now I'm stuck feeling bad about the whole situation. I just hope that whatever happens next, things will settle down. Thank you, everyone. Update 2. So about a month ago, things seemed to be getting better, at least on the surface. Joe and Sarah got back together, and I gave them my blessing because Joe really wanted it to work. Sarah even moved back into the house, and she was actually being decent to me, which was a change. But honestly, I always felt like she was just putting on an act. I had this nagging feeling that she still didn't like me and was only being nice because her other option was to be homeless. It all went downhill really fast though. Less than a week after moving back in, Sarah announced that she was pregnant with Joe's baby. And that's when the real chaos started. She dropped this ultimatum on Joe. Either I move out or she'd break up with him and make it impossible for him to be involved with the baby. Joe was torn because he didn't want her or the baby to be homeless, but he also made it clear that I wasn't going anywhere. I'm his family, and he wouldn't kick me out for anything. So Joe told Sarah that they'd have to break up for good after she gave him the ultimatum. He even kicked her out again. That's when things got even crazier. Sarah started messaging Joe, saying she was going to get an abortion because she couldn't afford to be pregnant. Joe, being the good guy he is, offered to send her money and even pay for her rent so she wouldn't be homeless, but she kept playing games anyway. I was borrowing Joe's iPad one day, and I saw that Sarah's iMessage was still linked to it. I accidentally stumbled across her messages to a friend where she admitted she wasn't pregnant at all. She was just lying to get money from Joe and had this whole plan to drag him along for months before pretending to get an abortion. She even said she was going to make Joe's life miserable because he kicked her out. I felt sick to my stomach reading those messages. I took a screen recording of the entire chat, including the phone numbers and everything, so she couldn't deny it or say that it was faked. When I showed Joe, he was completely heartbroken. He stopped sending her money, but now he's unsure about what to do next. He's even thinking of reporting her to the police for fraud, but part of him just wants to cut her out of his life completely and move on. I've never seen Joe this hurt, and I feel so guilty because I know all of this is stressing him out. I'm still in shock over how horrible Sarah turned out to be. Even with everything that's happened before, I never thought she'd do something this low. Now we're just trying to figure out how to move forward from all of this. Now on to the next story. Story 12. My fiancé doesn't want to invite his SIL to our wedding because she has feelings for him, when it's more the other way around. My fiancé, Will, has a younger brother, Charlie, and he is married to Evie. Evie is a beautiful woman, both inside and out. She is one of the nicest people I've ever met and is an amazing and supportive friend, perhaps the best friend I've ever had. Will, Charlie, and Evie went to school together. Charlie and Evie have been together for 20 years. They married pretty much straight out of high school. During their time at school, Will and Evie went on one date before she started dating Charlie. Will had been hounding her for a date, and she eventually said yes to try and make Charlie jealous, as she liked him but didn't think he felt the same way. Yes, completely aware this is ridiculous, but Evie was 13 at the time. Evie told me about this date pretty early on. She had wanted me to know in case I thought she had feelings for Will. She made it very clear that she's never had romantic feelings for Will, and that she just used him for that one date to make Charlie jealous. I do know that Will had feelings for Evie, and from what he said, that he stopped having them since we've been together. Will and I are currently in the process of planning our wedding for next summer. We've been putting together a list of who we want to ask to be a part of the wedding party and who we want to invite to the wedding. I want to have Evie as one of my bridesmaids because I know she will be supportive and reliable. Will frowned and told me that he wasn't planning on Evie being part of the wedding. I asked if he had a falling out with Charlie and wasn't inviting him either. Is there a package deal as a married couple? Plus, there is no way one would attend without the other. He replied that he hadn't fallen out with his brother, but he couldn't see himself getting married with Evie there as, according to him, she still has feelings for him and he wouldn't want her to ruin our day. I know for a fact that she doesn't. I asked him if she had confessed feelings or something. He said no, but it's the way she is with him. He gave examples like how she's always around our house. Evie and I run together 3 times a week, and as I live closer to her work, she comes to ours to change instead of going home. How she'll make his favorite dessert when we celebrate Christmas at theirs. His birthday is Christmas Eve. How she does little thoughtful things like dropping off baked goods for us, or how she takes an interest in things he is interested in. The 3 of them support the same football team. To me, none of this is Evie showing she has romantic feelings for him. She's just being a good friend. I told him this, but he is insistent on not inviting Evie to the wedding. I know that if Evie isn't invited, Charlie won't attend, and it will snowball further as the family are really close, but it will look like I'm the one causing this. I reached out to Evie after the conversation with Will, and I asked her to be honest with me if she had any sort of romantic feelings for Will. At first, Evie laughed at the idea of her having any sort of feelings for Will. She then admitted that until I met Will, he had made her uncomfortable, but it had lessened since we got together 2 years ago. She explained that Will would make comments about how they were more suited than her and Charlie. He used to send her drunk messages about how they belonged together. She told me that Charlie knew about the messages and they had pulled themselves away from Will during that period but only allowed him back in when I started dating him. I asked her if he had sent her anything like that since we'd been together. Evie went quiet on the phone before saying that he had sent her a message at the weekend when Will, Charlie, and some of their friends had gone out drinking. She had canceled on running this week but hadn't given me a reason, and it turns out that she is avoiding Will. Charlie also hasn't been talking to his brother since the night out because of the message. She sent me the message and it was very explicit. He told her that he wished he was the father of her child, Evie's pregnant with their 4th child, and not Charlie, and how he'd be a better dad than Charlie could ever be. I'm not sure what to do. I love Will and he is convinced that Evie has feelings for him when she's made it clear that she does not. I thought Will had moved on, but he's now sending Evie messages. Is there anything I can do or is the relationship just doomed? TLDR, fiancé doesn't want his SIL to be invited to the wedding, saying it's because she has feelings for him. Turns out he has feelings for her and has started sending her messages again saying that he loves her and they belong together. Edit. Not that it makes anything better, Will was 15 when they had the date. Evie is 6 months younger than her husband. She's 34 next month. I've told Will that we need to talk when he comes back from taking his mom to an appointment this morning. It's nothing serious, just taking her to get new glasses. But she needs the help as she's got mobility issues. I think he knows I want to talk about Evie as he asked if it was about Evie in the wedding. I said yes and he sighed before telling me we would discuss it when he comes back. I'm going to put together a weekend bag so I can leave quickly if needed. I've texted Evie and Charlie to tell them I'm going to talk to Will about his behavior because it needs to change and he needs to realize that nothing will ever happen with Evie. Charlie responded wishing me luck and has said their house is open to me if I need it. He also apologized for me having to go through this as they shouldn't have stuck their heads in the sand about this, hoping it would go away. I know I should have brought this up after she told me, but I'm very non-confrontational and will try and avoid an argument if I can. Update 1. Will and I had a talk when he came back. I told him that I knew about the text he had sent Evie at the weekend. He denied it straight away, telling me she was a fantasist, but quickly changed his tune once I started reading him the text. He then started to apologize and claimed it was just a moment of weakness after Charlie had been showing the group pictures from their family holiday last month. One of them had made a comment about Evie being out of Charlie's league, which reminded Will that he had lost his chance with Evie all those years ago. He then sent her the text. I asked him how he would feel if it had been Charlie harassing his partner, and he just lowered his head and said he would be upset, but that Charlie didn't deserve Evie. I told him that Evie wasn't an object to be given to whoever is deemed worthy of her, and that she chose Charlie, and that should have been enough for him. The fact there is someone out there who loves Charlie for who he is and makes his brother happy should be enough. Will told me that he was jealous of Charlie as he has everything he wanted, and it wasn't fair because he's the eldest. Charlie did better than Will in school, he was better at sports. Charlie is more successful as he was able to do what he wanted. Will feels he had to do what his parents expected while Charlie could go to uni for whatever he wanted. Seeing Evie with Charlie is a reminder that Charlie has everything he wants. I asked Will if Evie was single and interested in him, would he leave me? Will refused to answer the question, but it was all I needed to hear. I told Will that I was going to stay elsewhere for a couple days while I figure out where I will go because we are over. I don't want to stay living with someone who doesn't care about me. When I went to go and get the bag I packed, Will asked me if he could have the ring back as it is a family heirloom. It belonged to his grand and was intended for whoever got married first. But when Charlie asked for it, Will apparently threw a massive tantrum over it, saying that it should be his as he is the eldest, so their mom said Charlie couldn't have it. I told him no, it was going to the person who it was meant to go to, Evie. I'm now at Charlie and Evie's for a couple days while I figure out getting a new place to stay or if I will move closer to my family. I work for myself, so that makes things easier. Charlie and Evie have decided they will be going low contact LC with Will. They'd go and see, but it will cause drama with the family and neither want that, especially Evie. Will called Charlie asking if I was with them, but Charlie told Will that he had no idea where I was. Charlie then proceeds to tell Will that they are going LC with him because of the way Will has been towards Evie, and that he is now doing what he should have done years ago and protecting Evie. Evie has apologized several times as she feels she's the reason my relationship has ended, but I have reassured her that the only person at fault here is Will, and I do not blame her for anything. If anything, she is a victim in all of this too. I've given her the ring, but she has said that I should give it back to Mal as she doesn't want it. I wish I had seen Will's behavior before it got this far, but I was blinded by love. Looking back, I can see there were red flags that I just decided to ignore. Now for some comments. Comment 1. Your fiancé is obsessed over another woman to the point he outright told her he wished he was the father of her children, and you don't want to say anything because it may start a fight. OP, you're his placeholder. If Evie did not have a husband or they divorced, he would go for her. This relationship is doomed. Comment 2. Why would you marry someone who is in love with someone else? You are the backup plan. If he ever sees that he has a chance with his SIL, he will drop you faster than a hot-baked potato. Do you really want this man to be father to your children when he would rather Evie be the mother? Comment 3. Girl, you have two choices. Each have consequences. Just know from now on whatever happens, it's on you. He's gonna lie and say it's not true and he loves you, but and we all know you're a placeholder. Option 1. You marry him knowing he loves someone else. You resent him and resent Evie because she has something you don't have that he likes. He would leave you in a heartbeat if he had a chance with Evie. You could even have good years with him and get pregnant, but know that he would leave you at any point for Evie. Option 2. You leave him and put yourself first, and later in life you are grateful you didn't settle for him in second choice. Either way, your future is yours. You can't blame him in 10 or 15 years why he doesn't love you because you knowingly chose to get married with him, or you can make the hard choice and pick yourself. Comment 4. Please don't marry him. You deserve to be the first choice. You're not with him. That text message is a huge sign to leave him. I'm so sorry, but I really don't think you can come back from this. He's living a fantasy, a lie, and you deserve so much better. Please sit down with him and ask him to explain that text. For me, I'd be out, but if you're determined to make this work, he needs therapy and you should distance yourself from Evie and Charlie to see if that helps. But really, I would break up. You have not built a strong foundation for this relationship, let alone a marriage, and if anything ever happened between Charlie and Evie, he would want to make a move. Even if Evie doesn't want him, I'd hang on to those two as friends and say goodbye to Will. Big hugs. Comment 5. You just found out you are getting set to marry a stalker who is focused very disturbingly on his own SIL, and you think this can be fixed? No, it can't. You're being used. Your fiancé wants you in the picture because it brought his brother and SIL back. You are his I'm a nice, safe guy costume. Your fiancé is a creep. His family is deluding themselves if any of them think you marrying him will fix the problem of him creeping on SIL. Run. Comment 6. Your fiancé, a 16-year-old, pressured a 13-year-old to go on a date with him. Are 13-year-olds even allowed to date? Did he drive a 7th grader to a restaurant and has been harassing her for years? I honestly can't believe Charlie and Evie haven't cut him off. I feel awful for her that she's had to put up with him trying to manipulate her into leaving her husband and father of her children for him. Now he wants to punish her for not reciprocating his advances by excluding her from your wedding, knowing how much it will hurt when she's so close with you. He doesn't love you, you're a placeholder because he can't have Evie. I'm sorry that sounds harsh, but it's the truth that can be seen plain as day from outside the situation. If Evie told him she wanted to leave Charlie for him, he'd drop you in a heartbeat. I would call off the wedding and be so glad Evie told you all this before the breakup became a divorce. Your husband is a creep. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.